This is Chase Amante bringing to you the Skilled Seducer of the Month. This month we are talking with Levo, who is a blast from the past. He's a guy who started the same time that I did. He got deep into mystery method. He had tons of success with it. He was actually an approach coach working with guys like Sin and Ted Magnet, who were some of Mystery's top coaches back in the day. He was big on Mystery's Lounge, and then he vanished for over a decade, got into a long-term relationship, went for a long time, but now he's back. And one of the topics that we're going to be talking about today is what is it like taking the time machine from 2010 to today, dealing with the women of today, what's changed, what's still the same, and we'll talk about a lot more than that. It's going to be a good conversation. We got lots to go over. Levo, it's great to be talking with you.
Great to be talking with you. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, man. So you're 40. I just gave kind of the introduction about you getting into mystery. You're on Mystery's Lounge, talking about the other coaches. You met up with Ricardus, Korea, and some other folks. Then you got into that long-term relationship. So that's the high-level overview. What was it like for you learning mystery method, then getting deep into Mystery Circle?
Yeah, let me give the listeners a quick rundown of my history. So I'm from Alabama. I don't have the accent, but that's where I was born and raised most of my life. My family moved around a lot when I was young, but we always stayed in the South. So I was like constantly moving and going a lot of places, and it was always strange because I was like the new guy in class, and the kids were always kind of standoffish. So like I never made those deep social bonds, I guess, with people growing up, and it affected me in my relationships. That I wasn't good at socializing. I wasn't good at getting girls when I got to that age. But I was like decently gifted, like physically and mentally. So I never felt really like low value. So I never really had that issue. It was more like I didn't relate to anyone I was around. But when I got to college, girls started becoming an issue. Like I just wasn't getting anything. And that's when I stumbled upon mystery method. Like that's what's interesting is how I found it. Like I just stumbled upon it. I wasn't like Googling how to get girls or anything, but I found it and I was like, this guy, he's talking a lot of sense. Like, cause his original stuff, especially at the beginning of his videos, was talking about like evolutionary psychology and value signals and things like that. Because when you just looked at the marketing, it was like how to get laid. And I was like, oh, okay, this should be an interesting video to watch. And when he started talking, it wasn't what I expected. It was actually like good information that made sense to my brain. And so at the time, I had this internship job where it was one of those corporate jobs where they hire an intern, but they don't really have much for you to do. So I was sat at a computer for 6 hours out of an 8-hour day with nothing to do. So I decided to fill that time with seduction content where, I got all the books, the forum posts, this, that, and the other, and I would just spend all day reading and reading and reading and just internalizing all this stuff and kind of becoming what we would call a keyboard jockey for a couple months because I was reading and reading and reading, but I was still 20 years old. I couldn't go to a bar or a club to actually put any of this into practice because back in that time, everything was like club focused. There wasn't that much day game material. There wasn't that much like social circle material. It was all like, go to a crowded bar or club and talk to everybody and work the room and be like the life of the party. And so like my birthday was in about 5 months, so I just crammed for 5 months. And then as soon as I turned 21, I like hit the floor running. more like stumbling because, as you know, like you can only learn so much from reading. You have to be in field. You have to be doing sets. You have to be putting what you've read into practice. I always tell people it's the same as learning a musical instrument. Like you're not gonna to go on stage and shred if you just read a bunch of books. Impossible. You got to pick the damn thing up. You got to practice. I would say practice is more valuable than reading, honestly. If you ask me, should I spend 100 hours reading books or 100 hours in field? I'd say 5,000%. Spend 100 hours in field. I don't care if you read nothing first. Just go in field to get those reps in. But, you know, I went out by myself. I had so-so success. I was starting to see the pieces, but I'm very analytical minded. And part of that is I wanted like validation because you never know if you're like actually doing it right if you just have yourself and a book as reference points. So I bit the bullet. I paid for a boot camp, and I, you know, the seminar was great, and the infield was great too because I had people watching me that have done this before and knew what they were talking about, and they could. It's worth every penny because you can't watch yourself back. Like maybe if you record yourself, but even then you don't have the eye for what you're doing wrong because it's your own blind spots. So just all those little tweaks and just the confidence boost of being told that what I was doing is right, what I was doing is wrong, fix this, keep doing that, love it, this, that, and the other. All that feedback, like supercharged me and really got me to the next level because now I had the confidence to back up the knowledge. Whereas before, because I was getting okay results. I'm still new to this. So it's not like I was going out just from reading a few books and, getting a girl every weekend, but I was doing okay. But after that, it was like next level. And I wasn't gonna just settle. I wanted to be like really good at this. So, and since I had that training, I stayed active on the forums. I stayed active in the Mysteries Lounge. I guess based off reputational value, that's where I met a bunch of people, including got the eye of the instructors. They had a boot camp in Atlanta one weekend and they needed approach coaches. And that's how I was initially approached. And I got in with them is that they needed somebody to help with a boot camp. And they knew I was in the area and they knew me and they trusted me enough to at least give me a shot. And so I went and I did my first boot camp, got along great with everybody, and then I hit the ground running inside the company where, you know, I was a younger guy. I was 22, 23 at this time. I'd not really traveled the world yet. So the idea that I got to see all of North America, I went to Japan, I went to a few other places on somebody else's dime, and all I had to do was what I loved is teach guys and go to nightclubs and hit on women, and all of this was free. Like I was living the dream as far as I was concerned. And yeah, I did that for a while until the company kind of had internal issues and split up. And then at that point, I was confident enough in my skills that I didn't feel like I needed to really surround myself with these people anymore, like go out of my way at least. Obviously, if they're in my city or whatever, I'd hang out with them, but I didn't feel like I needed that crutch. And that's when I went on my own journey to build the life that I have now that, is an attractive person and who can naturally, just by talking and describing myself and my presence or whatever, can get the results that I'm happy with. And, I stayed active, just talking to people and doing stuff for a few more years, but I got to a long-term relationship, like you said before, and that was 2010 that I got into that, and I kind of just went into either business building or relationships or personal development, all of that stuff. I was married for a long time, so it's not like I was going out and gaming. And the other thing I didn't mention is in 2010, I also moved out of the US. So a lot of this time I was actually living in Brazil. And so now that I'm back and single and going out and meeting people and doing all this type game stuff again, it's a whole new world. I've gone from being a young 20-year-old focused on like nightclubs in major cities to not being in the United States during one of the biggest times of change in the country. Like, not only can I talk about how the games change, I can talk about how the country has changed and the culture in general. Because I left in 2010 and I came back in 2017, and it was like I had revert what they call reverse culture shock. Like, I didn't even recognize the place that I'm supposedly from. I was like, what's going on here? This is a completely different place now. And then, of course, COVID hit, and that was a whole nother thing. And so, like, now that we're like coming out of COVID, we're out for a while now, but that's really when I started like really doing game stuff again because the world's changed and everything's different. And there's lots of calibration pieces that I've had to implement and change the way I think. And there's so many variables too. It's my age, it's my location, it's the culture, it's how people interact with each other in general in this digital age. Like, there's so many interesting things we can talk about.
That's a great overview. So maybe let's talk a little bit about what your club game was like before and how things were going. So once you moved down to said you were in Brazil, right?
Yeah.
So what that was like when you got there. I know you met up with Ricardus Korea, who's on the forum, and you were telling me before that he's the one that invited you down there, and then got down there and went down there kind of on a whim just to do some traveling, and you ended up loving it and staying, and then
Yeah.
stayed for a
So
long
yeah,
time.
right. So my initial game was I lived in major cities and I would work during the day and go out clubbing at night and meet people that way. And at the time I was, 22, 23, 24 years old, and those are like your prime clubbing years. And so it was nothing for me to go out. That's the one thing I miss is the body's ability to rebound from these nights out because I'd work on 4 hours of sleep every single day because it was more valuable to me to just have another night out than it was to, sleep 8 hours. So yeah, so we would go out. I had a nice group of people in whatever city I was in, and we'd go clubbing, obviously the weekends and probably 2 to 3 nights during the week. I would have to catch up on sleep a couple nights a week, but that was my main game is go out and meet people at clubs. A lot of one night stand game. That was a big thing at the time for me is like I was in like wild mode. I wasn't trying to get a girlfriend. I wasn't trying to get an LTR. I was just trying to get numbers and sets and experience in. And that was the goal. The goal wasn't to meet somebody long term. Like if I wasn't getting late on day two, I was like, okay, whatever. I'm gonna go. I would prioritize going out again than trying to have a second or third date, just because that was the goal. The goal, and I would move every 2 to 3 months, so I knew that even if I did meet someone amazing, that it wasn't going to be a long-term relationship. So that was my main game for a while. Go to a club, work the crowd, get to know everybody, try to build value internally and see like which girls were the best prospects that night and see if you could either take them home or at the least get their number for a next date. Uh, and then like when I moved to Brazil, I graduated. So my personal backstory is I graduated college right after the 2008 crash, and there were just no jobs. Like there weren't jobs to be had. And I was like, what am I going to do? I'm not going to be a failure to launch. I don't want to move back in with my parents. Obviously, that would be like especially if you're trying to game. That's like kryptonite. So I was like, well, I gotta make a bold move. I gotta do something to better myself. And if there's no opportunity for me in the US, then I'll find opportunities abroad. And yeah, like I had been in touch with Ricardus for years at that point. We were really good friends. We talked all the time. We'd met in person multiple times. And he was like, dude, just come to Brazil. I'm in Brazil right now. I have some contacts. They're always looking for English teachers. That's what I did initially. I bought a 3 month plane ticket and I gave myself an ultimatum, like either set yourself up and stay or go home in 3 months. And honestly, it didn't take me a month to get myself set up. And we were living in a big house together. And it was honestly the time of my life because not just Tim, but there were probably like 20 other non-community people that we all lived together, and we had this big community, and we'd go out to clubs together as a group, and all the guys and the girls would help each other out because we were like this fraternity, and it was a good time. It was just a good time in life, and so I decided to stay. And after about a year there, I got into a long-term relationship, and that's when I decided to settle down because I'd had so many crazy nights throughout the years. I was like, okay, I got that out of my system. I felt like I'd achieved my goal of being able to get a girlfriend whenever you want, wherever you are in the world. Like that's the initial goal. Like that's what I wanted to get to, that point of where I was just confident that this is not a problem for me anymore in my life. And once that I was like pleased that I had gotten there, I was like, okay, now I can settle down because this is not an issue anymore. Too many guys settle down with the first girl that likes them because they have the scarcity mentality. Like, I'm gonna, I better keep her because, like, who else am I gonna be able to get? I lucked out getting her, and it's such an awful mentality to start a long-term relationship on because you're investing all this time and energy, and you're making all these concessions to someone that you may not otherwise do because you're afraid that you can't get another girl. And that was my big goal, that I wanted to prove and fix. That I was wanted to be completely confident in myself that I could go out and get a girl within a week, no matter where I am in the world. And once I had enough success that I was like, okay, this is possible, I let myself settle down. And also I was ready to, because the party life does catch up with you a bit. So yeah, that's when I decided to settle down, and I started a business, her and I together, and we ran it for 8 years, and it was pretty successful. That's the reason really I ended up staying in Brazil, was because I was running a business at the same time. But I know we want to talk more about game. So yeah, that's when I settled down. My LDR lasted about 8 years, and then I came back and took some college classes for a year and a half, just hardcore mode. And then COVID hit, so everyone was on lockdown. So yeah, I didn't really get to go out and do my thing until about a year ago, a year and a half ago, whenever everything opened back up.
So I want to ask you a bunch of different things. I want to ask you about your perspectives on marriage because we got the online discourse is dominated now by like the super conservative guys who are like, if you're not doing marriage, everything else is degenerate. And then you've got like the super hardcore red pill guys that are like, marriage is a scam, never marry, it's like a trap for men. Whereas you are coming from the background where you're good at picking up. You've got plenty of choice with women. You picked a girl that you like. You're married for a while, good long while, but then you split up, single again. So it'd be interesting to hear your views. At the same time, I want to ask you about your return to the U.S. And then I also want to get back to that topic we were talking about earlier about the culture shift. So
Yeah,
we
like
got to pick one of those.
yeah, like that's the thing. The culture shift is the big thing for me. Like, it's really interesting the way you just said your question, because in my mind, the red pill guys are very conservative, but you like split them into two groups. And like, because when you and I got started pickup, red pill didn't exist. None of this stuff existed. This is all like the last decade of cultural advancement. And like I see why you separate them because you made the point just now. Like, yeah, it makes sense. But in my mind, like there's like
Yeah,
where
yeah,
you
yeah.
I
They're
started
conservative,
out.
but they're like different weird branches with opposite views on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But what I was getting at is like I remember when you and I started, like getting a stripper was like the holy grail. Like if you could date a stripper, then you're good at pickup.
Yeah, yeah,
Now
definitely.
there's all this discourse online where, if you date a stripper, you're a cuck because why would you date a girl that gets attention from other men? How could you allow that? And it's such like it still gives me culture shock because I was like, wait, I thought strippers who you wanted. Like all the guys want her, and she's the baddest girl, and everyone's fighting over her attention. And if you earn her attention, that means you're the alpha in the room or whatever you want to call it in pickup lingo. It's like I always remember like, we had whole seminars that people paid $2,000 for a day to learn like stripper game. And now I see this quote unquote red pill discourse where people say, "Oh, your girl's on OnlyFans. What a loser you must be. Why would anyone date a girl that's on OnlyFans?" And it's like, well, I mean, that's a pretty conservative view. Like, I understand where it comes from mentally, but it's not the culture that like we had getting into pickup. Like, my goal was to be able to attract the most desirable person in the room, and that oftentimes would be the stripper. If you were in a room, everyone's vying for her attention. So if you were the one to be able to successfully get it, uh, obviously, if you're in the club, she's going to pay attention to who's paying. But if she takes a bunch of money from some guy and then goes home with you, that makes him the cuck, not you. In my mind, like you're the guy that fucks her for free when she gets off work. She's just going and like taking money from some dude and getting her bag, as they would say these days. And now when you get to the discourse online, everyone's like, no, you're a cuck if you even look at a girl that does any kind of sex work. And it's like it's weird how we got there because I missed that transformation when I was out of the country and not paying attention to the online spaces.
I tend to think that so if you pay attention to the red pill dialogue, the common theme that you see again and again is submission. And they talk again and again, you need to find a submissive girl. You need to find a nice, quiet girl, a girl who will submit. You don't want the professional girl, you don't want the career girl, you don't want the loud girl, the confident girl, you don't want the stripper, the OnlyFans girl. But there's the undercurrent is that these guys can't handle those girls. Those girls will not submit to them.
Right.
There's almost a kind of are you familiar with the term auto rejection that we use? So
If so.
so basically, there's a concept that it predates me, but I've sort of popularized it called attainability, which is where, so in mystery method, you have value, right? Got your value that you build up. But if you become too valuable, you can reach a point where you're so valuable that the girl's like, oh, like that guy, he's out of my league. We kind of talked about that earlier before the call started, where girls feel like they can't access your value, and that's attainability. So you can do things to make yourself more attainable, where the girl says, this guy's very valuable, but I still feel like I can have the kind of relationship with him. I still feel like he respects me. Like, I still feel like our levels are not too far apart. But as soon as things start feeling unattainable, then people do things to protect their egos. They reject preemptively people that they feel like they couldn't access the value from. And I think a
Right.
lot of that happens with Red Pill. These guys are like, I could never get that girl to submit to me, therefore she's trash. They mentally reject her. They're like, all these different girls, here are all these different categories of girls, and they're all garbage because they wouldn't submit to me. Whereas like the whole pickup thing is like, how do you make any girl submit to you? At which point, no
Right.
girl's trash because they're all going to submit. I think that's the main like the divergence between red pill and pickup. Like the pickup guys trying to make them submit, red pill guys like I got to take what I can get. Like which girls will submit to me at the level that I'm currently at.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess I didn't think about it that way because I haven't actually encountered that many red pill guys in real life. It's all been in like an online phenomenon for me. And so I know that the guys who peddle that seem to like, at least some of them. I'll admit, I'm not familiar with the sphere at all. I try to not read it because I just think it's toxic, not in like a blue hair liberal way, just like from a like I find no value in their mindset. I find no value in the way that they approach the world. And so like I just don't engage with their content. But I know that a lot of them, they didn't Andrew Tate like run a prostitution ring or something like that? Like that was his thing, and everyone thought it was cool that he was like
He
had
had a
a
cam girls business, I think.
cam girl business, yeah. And
Oh, they were available.
that's, I mean, that's making all these girls submit to you and in a way, but obviously that's not reproducible for the normal guy. So like they'll think he's cool, but I don't know what they're paying for because they can't reproduce that. They're not going to move to Romania and start a cam girl business. Like all they can do is like act like him at the bar. Like I don't even understand. I don't see the long-term strategy there because you
Got
can't
to
act
try to
like
start
him.
at the bottom. You get your first girl
Yeah.
as your OnlyFans, and then you pimp it. You expand it to two girls on OnlyFans. But
The
you're
pickup thing is like I don't want to have to worry about all that shit. I just want to get laid by hot girls. That's my goal. I want to get hot girls to have sex with me and stick around and add value to my life because like I love women. I think they're fun to hang out with. I think if you choose the right to surround yourself with the right people, you can have an all it's I have as much fun, going out with a bunch of women as I do going out with a bunch of dudes. Like that's fun with me. I just want cool people in my social circle. I don't want to pimp them out or anything or make them all submit or anything like that. So like I see the value in pickup as just learning to be a better person and being a better man. Like internally in Mystery Method when I work, I say work when I was there, like we had this thing where it's like you got to promise people ice cream and then force feed them their vegetables because what they need is vegetables. They don't need ice cream. And 99% of guys who have trouble with women, they don't need one magic line that's going to get them laid. They just need to work on their self and their inner game and their life and realize how you present yourself to the world, not any type of magical, three things to get laid or whatever the marketing material says. But that's not what's going to get them in. It's a really shitty sales letter to say, you know, take your vitamins and work out and go to therapy and make yourself and get a job and make yourself a better person and then you'll naturally be attractive to people. Like you can't sell that, but a lot of times that's exactly what people who show up need. And that's why I think Red Pill's been so successful is because they give people this out of, no, I don't need to improve myself. It's the women that are the problem, or it's society that's the problem, or every other excuse you can come up with to not admit that you need to improve yourself and that you are an unattractive person. Sorry to say that, you know, not physically, but like mentally and how you interact with the world and how you interact with people. Like one of the big things that I had to learn was like the rules of socialization. Like my dad had the personality of a wall because he was like an engineer, and my mom, who was outgoing, was extremely negative. And her idea of having a conversation is just complaining about stuff. Well, neither of those are winning strategies to going out and cold approaching and talking to women and making yourself seem attractive. They don't want you to have nothing to say and they don't want you to just start complaining about stuff. Like, and that was the personality I learned as a child. And the biggest thing for me, there are two huge takeaways I got when I learned pickup is first was the seduction roadmap, like I alluded to before, was just knowing where you are and where you need to go, which, humans are animals and we have a mating dance. And if you can like navigate that successfully and do the right things, you're going to get laid. The second thing you have to do that I don't think enough people talk about in the community is just get the fuck out of your way. Like you have all of these sticking points and negative qualities that led you down this path because like I assume you weren't having good success before because you wouldn't be reading all this material if you did. So you have to figure out what it is that you're doing that's hindering you and stop doing those things. And at least for me, and I think for a lot of guys, if you just follow the roadmap, even if you take detours and do it poorly, women, if they're attracted to you, they're going to help you seduce them. They're going to lead you back on the way you need to go if you pay attention. So the other thing you just need to do is figure out what your sticking points are and stop doing those things. And that sounds really simple to say, but that's the hardest part because those are the things that are ingrained in your head from birth, not birth, but since you were raised by your parents, you picked up all these bad habits like complaining all the time and being negative that you're going to have to reprogram into attractive, successful behaviors and qualities. A big thing for me was vibing. Uh, just the way you talk to people and keep the conversation positive and good emotions. And we should be bouncing back and forth and amplifying each other's positive emotions that we're experiencing from the conversation. And the actual words and logic of it takes a back seat. If I'm having a good time at a club, I want to be vibing with you and just being like, oh, hey, this is great. We're having a good time. Not, well, I got +5 charisma on my D&D character and like taking it down this logical route that takes everyone out of the moment and out of the emotion and this, that, and the other. Or worse, complaining, where if I think my idea of good conversation is the music's really loud here, like that's what my mom's idea of conversation would be because it at least it fills the void and you're talking, but nobody wants to be around you if your idea of talking is complaining about something. So like that was my big journey of figuring out all this stuff I was doing that was turning people away and learning all of the qualities and values and speech patterns of successful people and flipping my whole personality. And you get so many students that are like, all they want to do is make excuses of why everyone else is wrong and their behaviors are right instead of saying, I'm not getting success with these behaviors. I need to change them, even if it's something that on the surface I would say 2 weeks ago I don't want to do. Right?
Yeah, that's a great analysis of finding things you're doing that are putting up barriers in your way and tearing those barriers down and then following that seduction roadmap. And that is the thing with selling anything. Everybody wants the magic pill. Nobody wants the easy stuff. Yeah. Whatever you're doing, you gotta if you're building a sales letter in this space, you got to figure out, okay, here's the thing I'm teaching guys. How can I package that up into like into a digestible method, and then put that into sales letter in a way that makes it sound compelling and fresh and original. When really, I mean, all the different things are kind of shades of the same thing. You got models and methods and everything, and they have their own unique quirks. But it's like you said, it's finding a roadmap that works for you, and then getting out of your own way.
Yeah, and that's the thing about the community is there's guys who are successful that can map on to everyone's existing personality. Like my personal base, I felt mapped really well to mystery method. So you can always choose the path of least resistance. There's multiple ways to skin a cat. Maybe bad boy and his game is better for somebody with a completely different personality than me as a starting point. Like I wasn't super comfortable with it. I've done it more stuff like that now, especially as I've grown and expanded and tried new things. But as a base, I think the best thing you can do if you're new is like pick somebody that you relate with and use their method and focus mostly on that because you know most guys that have good reviews are successful and you can be successful in multiple ways. So take the path of resistance and say like this maps to my personality the best. So I'm going to do that. The worst thing you can do is put hurdles in front of yourself and be like, I need to completely transform into someone I'm not. That'll just take you twice as long, you know?
Definitely. So you're a mystery method guy, and your seduction roadmap, is it primarily mystery method? You're doing the M3 model.
Yeah, for the most part, you once you get more calibrated and you can get better at like seeing where you're at, you can jump around. You don't have to be strict. A1, A2, A3, C1, C2. Like you can jump around in there once you get calibrated to the point where you can just do these little compliance tests and ask little questions, see how she reacts to being touched, and you'll know where you're at in the seduction, what you need more of, what you need less of. You can start hopping around, but I definitely guarantee people starting from nothing to at least hit the notes of those steps so you can say you tick the box. Like, you know, you can do too much. The big thing a lot of guys do is they do too much attraction at the start. They because that's the easiest part and that's the part that gives the most dopamine. Like if you come from a spot where you've never successfully gotten female attention in your life, and then suddenly you're able to go out and talk to a group of strange, attractive, not strange, but like new attractive women and get them laughing and giggling, just that is very validating even if they leave 5 minutes later and don't and give you a fake number, you still feel really good about yourself because those hot girls just laughed at my jokes and talked to me for 10 minutes and that's never happened to me in my life before. So like just going through all those steps is a great process to build your confidence and build your inner game because you're still getting results you never had before, even if it's not, you know, master seductor the next day. Like it feels good and it builds your confidence and lets you move on. And it's a process. So you're gonna lose some sets, and all you have to do is instead of being bummed out because oh she's so hot she was the one, you just have to go back and write out a report, go through it piece by piece, ask your peers what do you think happened here because they're going to have insights and knowledge and experience that you don't have, and they're going to be like oh you should probably work on this if you're honest about it. You have to be honest with your coach. If you don't tell your peers what actually happened, they can't give you good advice. So yeah, like I like to follow the mystery method because it's a great roadmap for especially for new guys. Uh, once you get more advanced, you can play with it and you'll know when and when you can't and that type of thing. But if we're talking about guys that are getting into this, I think it's a great map to follow and you'll get success with it.
Now, earlier, one of the things we talked about before we got on the call was that you feel like mystery method is good for newer guys, but there's some pieces missing from it, sort of more the sexual aspects. And as
Right.
you get more advanced, you want to add those in. And so I was going to ask your opinion about that. And then I would also ask you, so I remember I had one of Mystery's video courses when I first got in the game, and he's talking about, yeah, when he took a break from talking about all the strippers he was dating, then
Right.
he would be talking about how mystery method is really it's for guys that are already getting results. You already should be able to go out and get one night stands and hook up with girls. Because if you're trying to do it before you get to that point, then it's not going to work. You're not going to be doing the techniques right. You won't be able to get the timing right, the delivery, all that stuff is going to be off. So he actually positioned it as a like this is for guys that are at least intermediate, and then you'll start doing mystery method. And Whereas I think you were suggesting maybe not all the routines and everything, but maybe more the model for guys that are beginners. But what do you feel is, well, I guess we talked about the sexual aspect. Do you feel like it doesn't sexualize properly, or what do you feel like is missing from the method?
I like I don't know what he's put out in the last 10 years, but I internalized all the older stuff. And the big piece that was missing with me that I feel like Ricardus and I really got deep into when we were conversing and on the lounge and stuff is like, you know, they're very much like comfort is just telling your story and making her trust you. And I remember Tin Magnet had a thing where he kind of repackaged the mystery method into a succinct little quote where it's like, a girl will sleep with you if she feels desired by, I think I'm butchering this, just like she wants to feel desired by a high status man that she can trust. And if you can make her feel that, like you desire her and you're a high status man and she can trust you, then she will sleep with you. Like, and that you can kind of see how that breaks down into the M3 model of like DHV, attraction, comfort, and then if you do those things, you'll get seduction. The big piece that was missing with me, and like you can still get laid if you just think. I think the word comfort is wrong. Like it makes sense because you have to tell her your story. You have to tell her enough where she feels like she knows you and that you're not a creep and that you have like this backstory that she can fill in her mind. But I don't think the books and the courses at the time at least emphasized sexuality enough and how you have to introduce things like sex talk and sexual framing and even just little teases where you misinterpret something she says as being sexual and you're like, hey, slow down, your mind's in the gutter, that type of thing. Uh, like, I don't think that's emphasized enough in the material because if you run pure comfort game, you're going to get a girlfriend. You're going to get a girl that wants to be your girlfriend. You're not going to get a girl that wants to have sex with you within the first 4 to 8 hours of meeting her. Uh, you have to go sexual with it. And that's going to be uh, like late these days. I run a thing where obviously I meet a bunch of women off online dating, or even if I don't meet her off online dating, I can just bring up online dating. What's your experience with that? And then you can just naturally transition into, oh, do you meet a bunch of guys that send you dick pics, or do they expect you to have sex? And then they'll say blah 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 because that seems like a normal question to ask somebody, especially like women, like, oh, you get that a lot. And I've heard women get that a lot. And then you say, well, what is your craziest experience from online dating? And then you can have a prepackaged story about this like wild and crazy sex night that you had with a girl or whatever story you want to tell. And it's like, what about you? What's your crazy? And it naturally flows into now you're talking about the kind of sex you have and the type of sex and what you like and what you don't like. And tell me what your craziest thing you've done is. Like, you can flow into those stories. And if you don't find some way to start talking about sex, you're not going to have a smooth seduction. You're going to get stuck in the boyfriend frame. Like you have to introduce that early on that, this is a sexual relationship and we are sexual beings and we're talking about that. And that's the one piece that I thought that Mystery Method's missing as I progressed through my journey is uh, just putting sex talk into your game and bringing, and you'd be shocked how quick women will talk about their sexual escapades if you make them feel comfortable to do it. Uh, zero judgment, zero. Like the worst thing you can do is judge them. They'll shut down the second you start judging them. But as long as you're like, well, that's really cool, that's awesome, they're happy they're nastier than we are a lot of the time. So they like talking about it. They just have these social barriers up where they're not supposed to. But if you can find that like smooth way to transition into it, it'll, put rocket on your game. You can get so much where you want to go so much faster the quicker you can introduce that in like a normal way that's not jarring. You can't just be talking about the weather and then suddenly be like, what's your craziest sexual experience? But if you can get through teasing or some kind of story or some kind of transition, the online dating thing's so common. Feel free to steal that, anybody who's listening to this. But like I've found it really like it works really well and it gets the conversation sexual and you can go in any direction you want from that.
That's a great smooth approach for introducing sexuality easily. Talk about that with any girl. Online
Yeah.
dating, dick pic transition, crazy stories, and then tell your own. Now, I had an interesting thought. So you're talking about how mystery method is more get a girlfriend oriented, and it's kind of like mystery's thing. I've heard people talk about that before. His thing, he he says it takes 7 hours to sleep with a girl. He's got his method. He's all focused on getting her out onto the date. He's not usually going for one night stands, at least from what he's teaching. And the girls that you hook up with quickly, he dismisses. He calls it fool's mate game. That was mystery's thing. Fool's mate. She hooked up pretty quick. That wasn't game. It was just fool's mate.
Well, I mean, you can it's success if your goal is just to have sex that night. But if you want to make her your girlfriend, yeah, he would call it fool's mate.
The method I originally learned was VAC, value attainability compliance, and that's also it's like mystery method. It's value focused, and it doesn't really focus on sexualizing things. There's like touch and there's compliance, so there's some indirect sexualizing, but there's no direct sexual component. And that method was also kind of geared towards, it was a pickup method. It was used for picking up girls quickly, but the focus was on getting girls to stick around, and you'd have all these different girlfriends you'd be seeing. So that was also like a girlfriend method. And when I look back, like, well, it's not like they were all that way because there was Swing Cat. He didn't really focus on value much. His stuff was all sexual, you know, getting into sexual frames. So that I'm the prize, that comes from Swing Cat, not mistaken. And there are other methods that are like that. So it's almost like there are these different methods where, and when I put together my own method, I kind of took the VAC model and I said, well, I like this model, but I want to change it because I think we need to focus more on trust, but we also need a sexual element. And I read a bunch of research papers and compared that with what I was already doing. I was like, okay, so we need the sexual part, but it almost seems like they're guys that have different focuses in game, and then they're developing methods based more on the focus. So are they more focused on trying to get a girlfriend and keep her? Are they more focused on getting a bunch of girlfriends? Are they more focused on having quick pickups? And whatever they're focused on, they're going to develop this different method. And it's one thing that I've never really heard people talk about in the pickup community space, that these methods do have these different focuses, and they're more aimed at, they can go across methods. You can use the sexual stuff and still get a girlfriend, and you can use the girlfriend stuff and still have one night stands. But some of them are better tailored towards certain objectives than other ones are.
Oh, I agree with that 100%. Like, I'm going on a cruise in 2 weeks, and I'm not going to be running mystery method on the cruise. I'm not going to be doing indirect openers and talking trust for the next 3 hours, like in a booth and slipping in little sexual comments. I'm going to be running one night stand game. I'm never going to see these people again. Like, I'm flying to LA for a cruise, and it's going to be a bunch of drunk people basically primed to hook up. And there's no way I'm going to be like, hey guys, let me ask you about my friend's shoebox with old stuff under his bed. And, let's sit here and talk about our families for 3 hours and, girlfriend game. Like, God, what a waste of time that would be. I think she'd get bored. She'd be like, I'm on this cruise to fuck. I'm not here to talk about your fucking family or your friend's shoebox. So that is not the game I'm going to run. Like, I definitely agree with you 100%. Like, different methods, different books, different gurus, whoever, they have their method and their method has a goal. And you gotta adjust your game to what your goal is, uh, because those are the results you want. So, be mindful of that and choose wisely.
So I'm very curious about this cruise thing. I was going to ask you about it later. Did you specifically pick a cruise that's like, it's going to be singles or like, no, I was on a cruise once in my life when I was a teenager, went with my family. We like left from Disneyland or something, and then we went out to the Bahamas. And what I recall is like a lot of families and there's older people and couples, but I know they have like singles cruises too. So is that what you're doing here? Or are you just gambling and hoping that there are some singles that are going to be there?
Well, the singles cruises do exist. I did not book a singles cruise for other reasons. Like I'm actually not doing the cruise for pickup. I'm just going to pick up while I'm on the cruise. So that's why I didn't book a singles cruise. But I did pick Carnival, which has the reputation of the most like party singles friendly type atmosphere. So like if you do your research on different cruise lines, they will say that Carnival skews young, skews party type demographic, not retirees who want to play shuffleboard or whatever. So like I did pick the cruise for that reason. And there's only one of me, and there's gonna be 2,000 people there. I don't reckon there are gonna be a ton of like legit targets, but I figure I'm well equipped enough. I only need to sleep with one girl a night, right? So like I don't need there to be 5,000 people like a city, right? Like I just need the one or two people for those 2 or 3 nights that we're going to be on the cruise. I don't need, there to be a target rich environment. Like I would never advise anyone to move to Birmingham, Alabama, because that's just not a target rich environment. But I would say you could go there for a night or two and get laid. Sure, why not? Like there's some targets there. And that's the way I'm thinking about the cruise at the moment, where it's like, I'm sure, fingers crossed, I'll be able to pick up somebody on the cruise, but probably not for like 2 or 3 weeks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense. I kind of assumed it was like a 7 day cruise, 2,000 people. I was like, I can find 7 girls out of 2,000. But if it's a 2 or 3 day cruise,
It's actually a 4 night cruise, but you never know, depending on the quality of the girl or whatever, if they want to hook up 2 nights. Like who cares? Like whatever. I figure I'll consider 2 nights get or 2 girls a success. I'm not gonna go 4 for 4 just because you don't know who you're gonna meet. Maybe she's really cool and hot, and maybe I just want to stay with her the whole 4 nights. Who knows? But I have been on even just like booze cruises where you go around the bayou in New Orleans for like 4 hours. They have these boats and it's BYOB, so people just show up with cases of beer and you just get on a pontoon boat and you just drive around for 5 hours. And I've seen debauchery just on those that goes to the roof. Like girls literally just tell each other, I'm not gonna see these motherfuckers again. I'm gonna go crazy. And they're twerking on them, and it turns into a strip club in the middle of the boat and all this stuff. So I imagine the cruise is going to have the same vibe. I've never actually been on one, so I could be wrong, but I imagine there's going to be at least half or 2 or 3 dozen people with that same mindset that, you can just go have a good time.
well, I hope you post an update to the forum because I'm very curious to hear how it goes.
I will. Like no one replied to the post, so I guess I'll be the guinea pig.
Yeah, you'll be the cruise guy. Then when future guys come and they want to know what can we do on cruises, you'll have the method already laid out for them.
I mean, you already have a room and there's a nightclub, and assuming the person paid for it, there's unlimited booze, and you have that whole vacation frame where people are much more willing to do stuff. So, like, other than the quality, I don't see a hole in the plan. Maybe the quality won't be that great, but maybe it'll be amazing. Who knows?
This is going to be interesting to see because
Yeah.
Maybe you'll start a new trend. We're gonna have a bunch of guys sign up for cruises after this, if it goes well.
Yeah, maybe.
So now, I guess one of the things we were going to talk about was kind of the culture shock of coming back with the not just so we talked about the red pill stuff earlier, but you also mentioned that girls are more conservative too. And you said in one of your posts that about how your last two girlfriends didn't drink at all. So have you noticed other moves towards conservatism among the women since you've returned to the US?
Yes, but I'm not, I'm still mucking over it in my mind because, like I said before, like so many variables have changed. Not only am I comparing 15 years ago to now, but I'm also comparing 22, 23-year-old club girls to, 30 something year olds that I meet now that have careers and lives and this, that, and the other. I'm also have gone from living in like a major city with millions of people to a smaller city. So it could just be the general culture of this area. Like there's lots of different, like the whole game has changed from my perspective because, you know, talking to party girls in their 20s and talking to doctors and lawyers and successful women in their 30s that probably have kids and careers and this, that, and the other, like it's night and day. It's a completely different game. Like even just little things like teasing, you used to go out with these club girls, you could tease them all night and they would find it hilarious. Now, if it has any kind of edge to it, they get offended by it. And they're like, how dare you say that to me? That was a tease. You're supposed to find it funny. And they're like, I told you have to completely calibrate. You can't say the slightest little thing, or they'll get self-conscious about it, or think you're talking shit, or this, that, and the other. And it's like, really, to be honest, it's easier. And I always knew, even when I was young, that older women are easier to pick up. But it's shocked even me. Like, I'd love to take credit for it and be like, I'm just such an awesome seducer. But I also think that just in general, older women are easier to pick up, whether or not I'm an awesome guy who's great at game. You know what I mean? So they, a lot of them have so many negative experiences with red pill guys that just you being normal and chill is enough for them to be like, hey, you're a breath of fresh air. I love talking to you. Uh, like the reason the dick pic Tinder thing works so well is because every single one of them goes, "Oh my God, you have no idea. It's fucking terrible." And I'm like, "Yeah, I think sending dick pics are trashy. Like I've never actually done that. I think it like why would someone even put themselves out there?" And then I tie it in like I work in cybersecurity as a job, so I'm like, knowing what I know with my job, how easy it is to like spread these things and blah blah blah, like it all ties together, but they all have these horror stories about how awful guys are and interacting with red pill guys and this, that, and the other. Just the fact that you're like a normal, well put together guy who doesn't have crazy incel ideas, a lot of times they're happy to just sit there and spill their guts to you just based off that. You don't even need all these advanced techniques.
Yeah, that's great. That's that's one of the like a lot of the guys that girls are meeting, the cool guys just getting rarer in general.
Yeah.
You got so many guys who are going to the red pill stuff, and then you got the guys that are like you still have like the naive guys that are like really nice and they're kissing up to girls, but they just don't flip those attraction triggers. And then sometimes those guys get bitter and then they become the red pill guys. See
Yeah. I
the
mean,
results.
that you're absolutely right. Like I've also had feedback from women just because I play solid game. They're like, it's nice to talk to a man for a change. Just they just throw that out there, and I'm like, I don't. And I look back, there's like, I don't think I did anything above and beyond for those particular interactions, but if their options are red pill guys or guys with no personality, like nice guys who don't flip any attraction switches, I mean, you are kind of like just based on the fact that you know proper game puts you on such a next level. And the girls that I'm gaming that are like early, late, early mid 30s, their value spike is past. They know they're not hot 22-year-olds. They're going to go to the club and get invited on yachts or whatever these young girls are getting. Like they know that's dried up. So the fact that like what they consider a high value guy is still just talking to them, they really appreciate that a lot more than the younger girls would. You have to fight a lot harder to prove yourself to them because they know their value a lot of the time. Whereas the opposite's true for these older girls. They know that their value's waning, and that's why they're so much more sensitive to negs and stuff like that, is because they're in their own head about where they're at and if they can attract a good guy, this, that, or the other. Most of them by this time are, if not divorced with kids, they just either have never, they focused on their career or there's a reason they're single. They're either divorced or they focused on their career, but they're quite aware that their youth is gone. So they're like, if you can play solid game, it's easier than it was back in the day because when I consider like 2010 to 2017, I was also a tourist in a foreign country, so that has its own advantages and rocket fuel to your game that we can talk about that if you want. But in terms of in America, yeah, like just being older and playing solid game and having a foundation of job, house, decent you know, like I said, I work in cybersecurity. I don't have a sexy job, but I can frame it as sexy. I'm say like I work in healthcare. I keep patients safe. You know, I can even say I save lives if I want to play that doctor line that I like to say, like, oh, I save lives. It's like, well, so do I, because I keep all the systems the doctors use running. So if that went down, they could die, right? So like I can spin it in 10 different ways to sound really cool, even though it's a pretty nerdy job. If I didn't know what I know from the community, I could describe my job in a way that completely makes me sound like a boring nerd, or I can use the tools that I've learned to describe it in a way that sounds really attractive and that I'm a guy that has a great position at a company. So it really is how you use the tools at your disposal, whether or not you're going to have success or not, even with the same foundation.
100%. And I've been working with some coaching clients, some longer term mentorship clients recently, and it's one of the things we talk about because they're like, I've got this job, but it sounds really boring. How do I frame it? And as soon as I hear that, I'm like, okay, well, like, so one of the guys that I'm working with, he works as a tech salesman and he's selling cybersecurity, similar to what you do. And he's like, I don't like if I tell them I'm a salesman, it's kind of, not that great. And I was like, as soon as he told me, I was like, look, you're a tech superhero. You're the guy that's protecting everyone's important documents from getting overtaken by the bad guys. You're saving their naked pictures from getting spread online. That's your role. And right away, that's something that you could tell to girls, and you're also injecting some sexiness into it right away. Talk about the naked pictures.
Exactly.
You can take that with any kind of job, basically, the most boring job in the world. Find some cool way to spin it to make yourself sound like a cool guy. I mean, maybe if you're a janitor, but even though that, I mean, like, I don't know, I keep the streets clean. I don't know. You can find something with that.
Yeah, you're a sanitation expert, and if you didn't do your job, you know, people's offices would smell and there'd be biohazards everywhere. It's like your job's really important. Like I'd have to give it some more thought, but there's a way to spin almost all the jobs as, positive. And I think they judge you more on how you see yourself and
Yeah.
how you explain your job than they do what your actual job is.
Hmm.
Because how you present yourself in your job gives good insight into your inner game and how you think of yourself. And women are absolutely judging you on your inner game and how you think of yourself. So it's up to you to present yourself in an attractive way because that stuff communicates so much more than what your actual job is. Because you can be a person that's, a temporarily inconvenienced millionaire who has all these plans, or you could be someone that's accepted their role as a loser in society. And it's just like, okay, well, who do you think the woman's going to want to date? Even if their job in that moment is exactly the same.
Absolutely. So now, just a moment ago, you were talking about how it's easier for you now, and you think part of it is because you're going for the older girls who are past their prime, and then you got to be more sensitive with them. You can't tease them as much. So my question for you is, why are you, do you prefer older girls? Why are you targeting them? Or is it more because you're doing online because of the age filter? So that's just what you're ending up with? Or what's the appeal versus other demographics?
It's both. Part of it is the filter. That's just what I get presented with, but also like I just don't enjoy talking to young women. I don't find that they've done anything interesting in life. Like it's harder for me personally to connect with them, especially since I wasn't in the country from 2010 to 2017. Like that's a girl that's in her early 20s. Those are her formative years. And she's going to talk about all this stuff. And I'm just going to be like, I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. I don't know who that is. I don't know what this artist is. I don't know what music you listen to. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. And you can get away with that in a different country because that's the frame. It's like this person is interesting because they're from somewhere else. And you guys can have this cultural exchange. And it's really interesting. When you're in the city that you grew up in, and you're telling her that you have no idea what she's talking about, all this important stuff that's formative in her life, it doesn't work that well. Like maybe there's a way around it, but I haven't found it. Like it's such a and for me too, it's not just that it kills the pickup from her end. It's like I don't enjoy talking to you because I can't relate to anything you're saying. So like girls closer to my age, we can sit there and just be like, you remember this from when we were in high school? Remember this? Remember this? And we have all these shared experiences and we can connect on this deeper level. Whereas if I talk to someone who's like 25-ish, like, the apps, they'll list their favorite artists. That's a thing. And when I look at younger girls, I'm just like, I don't know who these people are. I guess I'm an old man now because I'm just like, oh, these damn kids with their music, but that really is how I feel. And a lot of times I'll listen to it and like maybe I'm missing out. Maybe these people are onto something and it just never doesn't connect with me. It doesn't do anything for me. And it's not just music, like other than like the big blockbuster movies like Marvel or whatever, I wasn't on the pulse of the culture. Like I was on Reddit enough when the election, everything was happening in like 2016, 2017, that I was like, I knew that Trump was doing well. But because I wasn't in the country, I thought that that was like a Reddit thing, kind of like how 4chan kind of bleeds over into Reddit a lot. I was like, yeah, all that stuff, that's just a Reddit thing. They've always been like that. It's if you go on 4chan, even in like the mid 2000s, they were always like that. The big culture shock for me was that it had become mainstream. You could go to Buffalo Wild Wings in 2020 2019, 2022, whatever, and the bros would sound like they were from 4chan in 2007. And it's like, but they'd never been on 4chan. Like the whole internet culture had become mainstream, whereas before it was like there was the internet culture and it was this niche, and I knew I was a part of it, but I also knew that it was separate from like the main culture of society. Now, when I came back to the country, it's like the main culture of society that was there had just kind of disappeared, and everyone had their kind of online personality from 10 years before. That's the way I experienced it. It's like all those ideas and stuff that you would associate with someone that was terminally online in 2005 was now mainstream in 2020. That was like the platforms of the parties, whether it's right or left. You know, you had 4chan versus Tumblr was now the two national parties instead of some niche thing online that everyone just kind of ignored and thought were losers.
That's hilarious. And that's an accurate description too. 4chan versus Tumblr in terms of the political parties in the US. I guess, people have been retreating more and more online, spending more and more time on there. And even if they're not on 4chan or Tumblr, it just bleeds over.
Yeah, it bleeds over. It's become the main thing now because, you know, when I was young in the early 2000s, like I was a complete outlier. I had a computer, an internet connection, and nobody else at my school, other than like maybe in AIM, you remember AOL Instant Messenger? Like there was no Facebook, there was no Instagram, there were no dating apps. Either you were a forum guy or you were just an AIM user, which was text messaging before text messaging was free for everybody. So, or even people had Blackberries. Like I remember when I was in high school, we had to push the button 3 times to change from A, B, C. So like it just wasn't a thing. And now it is a thing. And it went from being like just the people whose family had a computer and an internet connection, and you had to go through all these pre-selection levels to be online in the first place. Now it's everyone from every level of society is online, and you start to see it. What used to be degenerate behavior in some neighborhood somewhere, suddenly it's a community that all these degenerates from everywhere around the world can get into. And that's where you see all of these like niche fetishes and stuff really taking off because it used to be you were the only guy in town with that and you had to keep it to yourself and never act on it. Now you go to like weirdshit.com and then you have 50,000 people from all over the world that love that same weird thing that you do. And, you know, it's much easier to retreat into that than it is to like make effort to fit into the community that you belong to.
The internet's just bringing people together, but in weird ways.
Weird ways and arguably ways that, society, a part of society is meant to like mold us to be the same so that we could interact with each other and have some kind of baseline. The internet says, no, re reject everyone around you. Like, I don't know my neighbors' names, but I know all these like random people on the internet in this community that I've chosen to be a part of. So it's really changed society in interesting ways. And to bring it back to pick up and not get too philosophical, it's like I think a lot of the women are tired because the man's sphere and the woman's sphere has diverged so much. Like women have come, the ones that aren't dyeing their hair blue and all that shit, they've become a little bit more conservative, but the guys have become way more conservative. And even like the moderate women, I feel like from my experience, they don't want anything to do with a lot of the mainstream manosphere. And if you don't have to be a male feminist and parrot all that bullshit. All you just have to be is like a normal guy, and they'll find you a breath of fresh air.
It seems like it's become increasingly harder for guys to move into that normal guy space. And there are a lot of guys that have resistance to it. So like I joined or I got active on X like last fall. And immediately I noticed like almost all the male influencers are like red pill, black pill. There's very few guys that are like pickup friendly. But even most of the guys that are pickup friendly, a lot of them have like a touch of the red pill to their stuff. It's like it's very hard to find a guy that's like positive, action, improvement oriented, giving tips on there. And I was talking with one of the few guys on there that is that way, and I was like, I think part of it is like that just with a mass channel like this where anyone can talk to anyone, you just get a case of like the bad driving out the good. It's like if
Yeah.
you're cool and you're sociable and you're improvement oriented and you get on there and people are like, ah, I got all these negative viewpoints, you're like, ah, fuck this, I'm getting off this platform.
Yeah.
So it
But
must stick around on there.
I don't engage with X. I don't know. I even when it was Twitter, like I just never saw any value in the platform. I don't know why. I can't put my finger on it. I was just short little blips of information never appealed to me. I guess because I was so used to everything being like a deeper dive and you just there's no room for nuance when you have like two lines to write whatever you want to say. And there's no room for understanding and discussion and like I because I came from the forum age where you could write out a post as long as you wanted to and interact with each other. I just thought it was like a nerfed version of the forums for people to virtue signal to each other. There's no value to be had in two-line conversations. There's just no room for nuance, no room for discussion. It's more about people and corporations and politicians who want to get their blurb out. That's how I've always viewed Twitter is like it's a way for people to get their blurb out. And I understand why it took off as like a platform for media and corporate messaging, but I never understood why like normal people used it. Like, why would a normal person ever engage with that platform? It never resonated with me for those reasons, because you just knew in order to distill your thought down to two lines, it had to turn into basically propaganda for whatever you were peddling.
I guess the interesting thing is that guys like you and me, and probably most of the listeners here, obviously the aim is to come across as normal guys, like more normal than the red pill guys, more normal than the like super nice guys or the male feminist guys or any of those guys. But actually, in being so cool and normal, we're actually not normal at all. And we don't really, because like
Yeah.
the normal
Well,
stuff is the, like all the weird extreme.
let's back up for a minute just for the listeners and define normal for them. And in my mind, when we say be a normal guy, I just mean be non-judgmental. So much of this red, black pill, whatever stuff is anti-woman because they want them to submit or they think all they do is cheat, this, that, or the other. Um, just whether or not you believe that's backed up with science is irrelevant. If your goal is to seduce a woman, the quickest way you can throw a wrench in that plan is to appear judgmental to women and give her negative feelings about how she conducts herself in her life. And the best thing you can do for yourself is if your goal is seduction is no matter what the fuck she says, tell her it's great or at least be neutral to it. Never have a negative opinion on whatever she puts out there. Of course, you're still going to be screening her and watching out if she's a fucking crazy person, and you keep that in the back of your mind for if you want to end this interaction or not. But in the moment, if you're not ready to end the interaction, just be like, "Oh, well, that's cool." Don't tell her that whatever she said sucks or is a bad idea, even if she's like, "Well, I eat ice cream every day and don't work out." And it's like, "Oh, cool. Your metabolism's great." You don't say that's really unhealthy. You need to work out and tell her all the reasons it's a stupid idea. Like that's the quickest way to kill a pickup is being judgmental. And when we say just like be a normal dude, it means in the context of like all this red pill stuff and the way society's working, it's just like don't be a dick. That's the best way. If I want to put it into a Twitter line, just like don't be a dick.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a guy put it this way to me once. He was like, I've been thinking, I'm starting to feel like, at any given time, a woman is just going to go do with whatever's going to be the most fun thing for the next 30 minutes. And it's kind of an oversimplification. But when you think about it that way, you're like, is she going to enjoy this conversation with me? Is she going to enjoy hanging out with me? And if you're doing judgmental stuff, she's not going to enjoy that. If you're being a dick, she's not going to enjoy that. If you're getting into some sort of logical debate where you're like, hey, your politics are wrong, my politics are better, then she's not going to enjoy that. The seduction is about creating an enjoyable experience, ideally for both of you. You should be enjoying yourself as well.
Yeah, and
A lot of these guys, you talk to them about that, and they're like, well, I don't want to be doing that. It's like, I'm acting like a clown or trying to whatever. It's like, yeah,
no,
you're not getting it.
it transcends pickup. Win friends and influence people. If you really want to change her beliefs, she's got to like you and trust your opinion first. It can't be, yeah, I met you 30 minutes ago and you're telling me I'm wrong about, first of all, why are you even talking about politics? You got off the you got off the game plan anyway. Secondly, why do you want to tell her she's like wrong about all this stuff if your goal's to get to know her better? Because you're just going to spiral into a political debate. No woman's ever been like, and he was so smart and so articulate, and he convinced me I was wrong, and then we got married and had 5 babies. Like, this doesn't happen.
He won me over at the debate competition. Been with him ever
Yeah.
since.
And it turned me on, and I couldn't contain myself.
Uh-huh. I mean, I've seen and I've done it occasionally myself. You get like the really intellectual girl, and you like outwit her intellectually. That can happen occasionally, but it can't be like a negative thing. It's got to be like a really interesting conversation where you're like really having the clash of wits. She's like, wow, this guy's brilliant. So you can have that, but then you got to have the other stuff there too. It's still got to be fun. You still got to be enjoying yourself. Still got to be sexy. Got to have all the, compliance, touch, leadership.
Yeah, I mean, there's room for deep discussion, especially if you're like getting to know each other and that. Like, there's nothing like that's one thing. It's like, I'm not saying just be a doormat and agree with everything she says. A big part of seduction is putting yourself there out as an attractive person. And part of that is confidently stating your beliefs and how you carry yourself in the world and what you think about things and your opinion on things. And if she can say, well, I think you're wrong, and you say, okay, yeah, I'm wrong, that will kill attraction too. But there's a thing you have to learn where you can disagree with somebody and also not be argumentative and negative and put them down. And also at the same time, like, you can't have anti-woman beliefs. Like, that'll kill her attraction. But if you have some like if you guys have disagreements on tax policy or whatever, just move on. Change the subject. Like, who cares? Unless she's like a super liberal who's gonna dump you because you don't believe in universal health care or something. It's like most normal women know that you're not going to agree on everything. So the best thing to do is just move on and don't bring it up again, not have an intellectual debate on some random ass political thing that doesn't move the seduction forward. My big thing that I learned is like every 5 to 10 minutes, look, take yourself out of the moment and see what the hell are you talking about and how is this moving the seduction forward? And if the answer is we went off on some tangent and this isn't setting any positive frames or advancing this in any way, stop talking about it and change the subject. Because it's really easy, especially if you get into a topic that you're passionate about, to go on a tangent, but it's not a helpful tangent. You can only show your personality so much by talking about the same topic for 30 minutes. You want to show other aspects of yourself and other sides. So you don't want to get stuck on some random thing, even if both of you just love whatever TV show. Fight the urge to talk about that TV show and like nerd out about it for 2 hours because, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's not the worst thing you can do, but it's also like, you need to hit all the other beats of the seduction dance. You can't just make a friend who loves talking about Breaking Bad or whatever.
Yeah. And the way that I put it a lot of times is that whatever you're talking about, it has to be personal to the girl. It can be personal to you if it's something she relates to, or personal to the two of you. Because anytime you start getting away from anything that's personal, you're getting off topic. She starts telling you about like some drama that her friend is having. Okay, that's interesting, but it's no longer personal to her unless she's involved in it in some way. Or, you start telling her about your job. Well, that's not personal to her unless you're relating that to her in some way. As soon as you start getting to these impersonal topics, people get to like music, movies. Okay, she likes it, but it's not really personal to her. It's not something that she's involved in or doing, just something she's passively watching. You want to keep the focus on, is this personal to her or to the two of us? And then you'll tend to be on good topics that way.
Yeah, for sure. And avoid politics unless
Yeah.
she throws up with the red flags where she bases her identity off of politics, and you don't want to be get mixed up with that anyway.
Yeah, politics are not personal unless you are a politician or she is a politician, and then maybe it's a personal topic. Otherwise you're just armchair politicking because neither of you has any influence on national policy, most likely.
Yeah, and I guarantee you, if she's active, she's been on a date with a guy who sat across from her and lectured her about politics for 2 hours without letting her get a word in edgewise. So she's had that experience before,
Uh,
and that's why you start to get comments like, "Oh, it's such a breath of fresh air. I had such a great day," blah blah blah, because you're not that guy. You're just a normal, chill guy who knows how to build a connection.
yeah, so talking about these, and I think, part of the, some of all the lecturing and everything is people are just frustrated and they're under socialized, so they don't know how to like, okay, maybe I shouldn't be talking about this kind of thing on a date, or they just don't even realize it. You talk to them about it and they're like, oh, shouldn't I just be myself? Put, do I have to hide that aspect of myself? And you're like, kind of, yeah, maybe. If that's, you got to get past that frustration, putting that onto other people.
Yeah,
But
there was a post on ASF by Tyler a long time ago that was really helpful to me because it's I've always been a really logical person. My dad was an engineer. I grew up really nerdy. And before I really learned this stuff, my idea of a good conversation was like two guys exchanging facts and knowledge about our favorite whatever video game or card game or whatever the thing was. And I really didn't understand female interaction and how these people can just sit around and talk for 30 minutes and say absolutely nothing. Like it really was a mystery to me. And I think that the post talked about how it's really broke down how their communication is, and I mentioned this before, it's like an exchange of vibes, and they really just want to give good emotions to one another. That's the goal of their interaction is how can I give good emotions to the person I'm talking to? And it's a complete different mindset than a nerdy guy's mindset of, well, I'm interacting with Chase because Chase has valuable and interesting things to say, and I want to extract as much value out of what he has to say for the next 30 minutes so I can leave with all this new knowledge. Girls don't think about that at all, especially with the young club types that I was going after at the time. They want to go to the club, they want to get drunk, they want to listen to music, and they just want to feel good. That's why they sit there and go, "Oh, you're so pretty. No, you're so pretty," because all they're doing is just making each other feel good. And learning and understanding that, you can then start to understand how you need to interact with people, especially in certain situations and group dynamics and things like that. Just a big thing for me for a long time was just go around and make everyone feel good. Just do it. Like, because even to this day, like at work and stuff, people say I don't give enough compliments, but it's something I know I need to work on. So sometimes I just do that exercise for a while where it's like, doesn't matter what we talk about. My goal in this interaction is just make the person feel good. And especially once you start dating and stuff and you start doing the more long-term relationships, it's like, how can I bring value to their life? Yes, but also just texting day to day. How can I keep it positive and make them feel good about themselves and make sure that they know they're still well qualified and attractive to me and this, that, and the other? Because you don't want to learn all this pickup stuff and you're only good enough to get laid once and then you can't keep the girl around because you actually have no social skills. Like that's the big sticking point for a lot of guys is they get good at the cold approach and even the one night stand, but then they don't know because they've been doing nothing but gimmicks that they learned online to get those results. They don't know how to maintain it. And I think that foundation and that inner game and like knowing really how to vibe and interact with normal people, especially women, is a really valuable skill that the listeners need to learn.
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot of the guys that have the most retention problems do not have that focus on how am I making her feel. Like that's the game. How do you make her feel? Do you make her feel the right things? Is she feeling it? If she's feeling it, she will never leave. If she's got all the good emotions and she's always feeling really great, amazing things around you, she doesn't want to be anywhere else except for next to you. So that's always the question. Like, what are you making her feel? Are you making her feel the right things? And yeah, a lot of guys just don't. They're not even thinking that way.
Yeah, like
I checked
you know,
off the right
it's
box,
not.
didn't I?
Yeah, if you go up like even one more level, like the big picture is like the girl, you have to be somebody that she wants to join their world. Like the thing you got to understand is women will not date somebody below them that they perceive as below them. You have to have higher value than them. And not just that, but you have to have a situation that they want to be a part of. So you have to build your entire life and the way you present yourself as something that they want to be a part of. Because if they don't want to join you, they don't want to be with you. So if you can't present yourself in a way that she goes, yes, I would like to be a part of that person's life. He's fun, good vibes, has good social circle, good this, that, and the other, something she wants to be a part of. She has to feel like being with you is an upgrade to her current situation. And that's distilling value down to its essence is like, will she feel like being with you is an upgrade to her current situation or a downgrade? If she says, oh, this guy's a downgrade, I don't gain anything from being with him, you can make your own conclusions about, human sexuality, evolution, and all that, whether or not you think it's quote unquote bad, but that's real life. If she doesn't see value in being with you, she's not going to be with you. Full stop. Like that's the way I understand it.
Yeah, that's a correct understanding. The point that I would clarify there is that I've seen a lot of guys that come in, they're like, I don't understand why she left. I've got a good job, I'm stable, I have a good income. We've had many happy times together. I don't get why she's leaving. Like she's going to be worse off without me. I don't understand it. And you know, so for a guy like that, you got to also help him understand how, yeah, it's an upgrade for her in some ways being with you, but there are also some aspects that are missing here. And if you don't have all the elements there, then she's going to go looking for them somewhere else.
Yeah, that is a good point. I don't just mean like because again, guys are very logical, so it's easy for a logical guy to say, I make X amount of money and my house is X this big, and you know, even if you're willing to pay her clothes or whatever, it's like that's only part of the equation. You have to be fun. And women, as much as they're monetary climbers, they're social climbers. So you could be the guy that wrote the algorithm for Facebook and have $20 billion, but if you are completely antisocial and never leave your mansion, she's just going to be bored. She's not going to be happy with you. Like there's this whole other aspect of human civilization that we kind of divorce ourselves from in the modern world because you're like, I'm rich, I have a nice house. But their programming isn't just who has a big house, it's who's the tribal leader. Because maybe 20,000 years ago, your hut was slightly bigger than everyone else's hut, but you all lived in huts. The real value is being the tribal leader, it's being the leader of men, it's having social status, it's being able to hold court in a conversation while everyone's paying attention to you. Those are the real attraction triggers, not money. And it's so easy. And that's where I think the red pill people get it so wrong because they always want to flash their cash, this, that, and the other, and talk about what they have monetarily. It's like, well, that's cool. And that will help you to a certain point, especially with a certain type of woman who doesn't have money, but she's not going to stick around. What's going to make her stick around is every other element of your lifestyle that's popular. Like you got to have friends. You got to do fun stuff. You can't tell her that, going to nice restaurants and going on vacations is a waste of money because, she expects these things. That's part of living life. That's what normal people want to do in their life. Normal people aren't happy to not leave their house all year and think going to Bali or London or whatever is a waste of money. Why do we need to do that? She's going to expect to travel if you have a long-term relationship. She's going to expect you to go to nice restaurants because that's what people do. And I think a lot of guys that get confused, they don't want to put any effort into the relationship after they get her. They think she should be happy on autopilot because, well, I have a nice job and you don't have a college degree, so you should be happy to be with me. And they don't feed that social side that's in everybody, especially women, where they don't just need money. They need obviously money, a security, really. Money is really security. Like they need security and they need shelter. Those are the number one things. But a human being is going to get used to their circumstances in 6 months. So for the first 6 months, if you took her from a really shitty situation and invited her to your nice house, she's gonna be really happy because you're meeting this security need that she didn't have before. But human beings are also creatures of complacency, and they're going to get used to that and demand more after 6 months to a year. And if you can't provide more, they're going to start seeking it somewhere else. And it's not exponential. They're not going to go more, 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 but you have to meet those basic needs. Like security was the basic need that wasn't being met when she met you, but now it is. And now she's moved up on the hierarchy of needs and she needs to be a leader of men. She needs you to travel. She needs you to do this, that, and the other. And if you're not doing that, she's going to leave you for somebody else that has a nice house and maybe those other things too. And you're going to be like, what an ungrateful bitch. I took her out of poverty and invited her here and she left me.
Yeah. And I think for the guys listening here, I think it's worth stressing that you do have different kinds of girls, and they have like different, different things that they need more or less than other girls. Like so you do have homebody girls who like just don't like going out that much, and they're reading books all the time, and they don't maintain large social circles. And so you get girls like that. And you get girls that are like they want to be outside all the time, they want to be socializing all the time, and you get girls that like to go outside into nature and go do hiking and trips and travel. And you get all these different personalities. And some of the biggest clashes happen when you have a girl that's really mismatched with your interests. And you can see that a lot. You can't see that with like the guys that are like, oh, I'm going to lift up this girl from poverty because like I gave her the stuff she didn't have. Because that's when it's a lot easier to get the mismatched girls. And
Yeah.
the guys that lack game will do that because they're like, oh, I can use my money to get a girl that I wouldn't have access to. I'd have a hard time getting a girl that's hot from like my own social class. So I could lift this girl up. But then she gets used to it. And then you find out that actually you're mismatched. And now she's like, well, I'm at this level, but you're not meeting these other needs I have. And that's when she exits. So even for like, if you're the nerdy, quiet guy and you're never going to become like, the king of the social scene, you could still upgrade your social skills to the point where you're finding the cute, nerdy girl that's going to be compatible with you and she's still attracted to you. And you end up with a girl that's at your level and two, you can build a life that you both like rather than trying to pull in some girl that's not going to be a match and then she runs off and you're like, I was giving her all this stuff. Girls value things differently.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I guess I didn't expand it well enough, but that's the trap is once you get and you're 'cause I'm speaking to the guys that are in their 30s, I'm 40 now. Once you do get a level of success, it opens up a lot of doors where it's like extremely easy and almost a honeypot to get a poor girl because she's going to give you all of the positive signals for the first 6 months or however long you're together because she sees that much value in you. Like I've got to the point where I don't talk to girls that don't have a college degree because it's really just not that I don't think I can lay them. Of course I can lay them, but my goal is not to get a different girl every weekend at the moment. It's to have like a 3 or 4 people that I'm constantly speaking with and seeing on a regular basis. And you you just get this value mismatch where, like you were just talking about, if you don't have the same like goals and whether or not you're a homebody and the type of things you like to do in leisure, like I had that a couple years ago where I was completely mismatched with this girl. We had this amazing first 3 months together, and she wanted to go camp all the time. I fucking hate camping. And it was like that started things like that started causing tension in the relationship because it's like, yeah, she was super happy to be with me at first, and I thought this is great, this girl's amazing. And then once her needs leveled up, we were completely incompatible. And you can either filter really well for that because a lot of time these girls that are in a desperate situation, they're really good at hiding that at first. So you're honestly, in my opinion, your best bet is to just go for girls that are already on your level socially, like, you know, that have a good degree, have a job, wherever you're at. I don't want to judge guys that aren't there yet, but wherever you're at, try to meet girls that are at least on your level because you can avoid a lot of those pitfalls of somebody that you think is so amazing to be around, but then they change 6 months down the road because they were only being super nice to you because of the upgrade potential that you had in that relationship. And because they don't have the foresight either to say, well, this is going to work out long term.
That's great advice. So, a question that I had for you. So, you're a pretty established guy. You're the director of your company, pretty successful, got a nice house, right? And now you're dating all these women who are in their 30s, and typically the expectation there, what you see with a lot of women from their 30s, is they're like desperately looking for that future husband or like the next father for their children. So, how do you avoid getting sucked into the husband zone with all these girls that you're meeting?
A lot of it is framing and a lot of it is selection. I've found there's definitely the type of girl that, and you can pick it up within the first hour of meeting. They're in husband search mode because, like, the questions they ask and the screening they do and just the way they present themselves, it's an immediate turn off for me. And just like I went on a date with a girl who, within the first 30 minutes, asked me if I had a yard because she only wants to date someone where she can have a vegetable garden once they get married. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? And you can pick up on stuff like that pretty quick. And definitely run from the hills when you meet those girls because they're so desperate to fill that husband slash baby slash whatever void. They'll settle for anybody, and then you'll get divorced a year or two later because turns out you were completely incompatible. She just wanted to get her eggs fertilized as quickly as possible with whoever would do it. That in her mind, she's being the logical person in this case because she's like, they need house, yard, job, whatever, and then they can take care of my baby. And they're not searching for compatibility that actually leads to long-term relationships. So yeah, definitely learn to pick those out. Um, a lot of the girls I end up dating fall into this archetype of they a lot of them have a kid, usually it's older, they don't want another one, and just they're like overworked women. They have a full-time job, they have to take care of their kids, a lot of time their baby daddy either pays child support or maybe doesn't take them that often, which if my goal is to have a rotation, that's actually great because she can only see me 2 days, 3 days every other week. Um, and they're tired and they just want a normal guy that they can get laid and go to their house and maybe have a few beers and unwind and have a good time with. And that if you give them that, if you're can give them that outlet of you're non-judgmental, you're there for them, you know, on your days off, come to my house, we'll Netflix and chill, maybe we'll enjoy some substances, alcohol, whatever, and have sex, and then you can go back to your life released. There's that archetype exists, and I've done pretty well at tapping into it. A lot of them are introverts, and and a lot of them work from home, so they don't have that social circle to pull from, and they have all the horror stories from online dating. So when you do show up and you're just a normal, chill guy, you get these comments like, "Oh, you're a breath of fresh air. I didn't think guys in this town were worth the shit, but it's really nice to meet you," that type of thing. Um, that's the market I've found and tapped into, and that's what I enjoy because I'm also a homebody. I don't want to have to go. I'm too old to go to clubs. It would be weird for like a 40-year-old and a 33-year-old to like go to a dance club. Sometimes we'll go to karaoke. Bar trivia has been pretty good to me because usually these introverted girls, they're also pretty smart. So I've had good success doing bar trivia, that type of thing. But for the most part, they just want to hang out once or twice a week and have somebody that they can decompress with. And that suited me really well. And I think it suits them really well. And you can frame the relationship too. Like, hey, you don't want another kid right now. You're not looking for a long-term relationship. Let's just have fun together.
That's cool. So you are the stress release guy.
Yeah. Alan, and being really good at sex helps with that too, because I think that's part of the reason they're
Releases a lot of
happy.
stress.
Yeah. So check out the sex forum if you're not getting compliments on because it's not just how long you last. Like integrate toys, especially my experience is the introverted girls are actually really kinky. Uh, and if that's your jam, which it's my jam, definitely look into that, buy supplies and stuff. The more you invest in it, I've never had a girl give me a negative reaction when I had a bunch of toys in a drawer. She's more like, "Oh, hell yeah."
So what's your online game look like? Are you applying mystery method to online, or I know some of the guys that do kink like have it right in their profiles, get like the black heart, the chain. So they
No,
advertise.
I don't advertise it. I think it's just the type of girls that I attract or into it. Like, I mean, I've had girls that aren't into it. I'll bring it up and ask them if they're into it, and it's just like 8 out of 10 times they are. Um, and the sexual framing, like during the pickup, like steers them in that direction. And even if they aren't, they're usually willing to try it and then they like it, right? So, like, my online game is I mean, it's not as complicated as you think. That's the thing I found about pickup. And I hate to sound like a natural right now and say, just, I'm not saying just be yourself, but like once you get all your sticking points taken care of, and once you get your life and your looks, like don't be overweight, have nice clothes, have pictures of yourself traveling so that you seem like an interesting person, have things to talk about. Once you get the foundation set, it's not rocket science to get a girl because you're attractive and they want to be with an attractive person. Like that's really goes back to what we said before, you know. Oh, did we say this before the call or during the recording? It's like you got to force people to eat the vegetables. You got to force people to work out and eat their vegetables.
I think that was before your type
Yeah.
the mystery thing, you got to promise them ice cream and then feed them vegetables.
Yeah, it's like you tell people you're going to learn how to get laid, but then you have to force them to improve themselves. And then once they've improved themselves, they're naturally attractive to women. And combined with the tools you've learned from the seduction roadmap and the framing and everything else that we give you, you shouldn't have too much of an issue attracting people, getting partners, whatever your goal is. If you're not having success, that means there's a sticking point somewhere that you need to discover. Because the method is just reverse engineering evolutionary biology. And we're not magicians. We're just doing what works. And if you're not getting results, you just got to figure out what you're doing that doesn't work. And if you can't figure it out, that's what coaches are for. That's what the forums are for. You don't have to pay. If you're well enough at writing out and you're honest with yourself, you can post on the forums and get feedback. And as long as you're honest, make an honest account of what happened, someone like Chase or myself can read what you wrote and say, oh, you need to work on this.
Yeah, 100%. And one of the things what you're talking about there about getting yourself to the point where you just have improved to the point that you are an attractive person, that there's only so much that you can control in pickup. You can learn different routines, you can learn to do this, to do that, and you can learn to control to a certain extent, but you sort of have to naturalize it to go past the last point. And I got a note here. You actually had a little anecdote that you shared on the forum where you're wasted, you drank a lot, you slept with this girl, and you thought it was because the two of you connected over going to the same high school. And when you talked about her later, she said, "Yeah, that's kind of like what hooked her in initially, but what really turned her on was at some point, you just grabbed a random drink off the bar, and just somebody else's drink, and you said it's mine now, and then you gulped it all down, and she got really turned on." And that's
Yeah,
it's one of the things that I talk about in the course I have one date where we talk about this arousal and the different ways you can create arousal. One of them is breaking rules, and guys that go around and just break rules and do things they're not supposed to do, it turns girls on. And it's not the kind of thing like you're not gonna write down like my pickup method. Okay, steal drinks off the bar and turn girls on.
exactly.
Just gotta get to the point where you just do stuff. You're okay. You're comfortable breaking rules, and you break rules kind of normally and naturally without thinking about it. And the girls look at that and they're like, "That's really attractive. That turned me on." And these things that
Yeah,
you wouldn't even expect are like triggers to get a girl to the point where she's like, okay, yep, this guy, I'm going with this guy. Like these things just start happening naturally. You can't
yeah,
account for or engineer.
and it they can pick up when something's engineered and when something's not. Because I guarantee you, if anyone listening to this goes out and just steals drinks off the bar, it's not going to work. It was a moment, and you have to seize it, and it worked in the moment. And I remember that, and she told me, and I remember doing it too. Like we were pretty wasted, and I was just like, "Oh, is this your drink?" And she's like, "No," and I was like, "Well, it's been sitting next to you for ever long." And she's like, "No, it's not mine." I was like, "Well, it's mine now," and I just grabbed it, and we walked off to somewhere else. And I didn't even remember doing that till she brought it up when we were doing the debrief later after we had sex. I was like, well, when did you know that you liked me? And she said, and that's a great question, guys, especially if you do one night stands. Like that was a one night stand. Um, I mean, and especially if you don't want to see her again. Who cares if you blow up at talking weird? Like, get the value out of the conversation, right? So, like that, and I was wanting to debrief her, and I was like, "Tell me when did you know?" And she was just like, "That was the moment. Something about it turned me on." And then I remember another girl, I was having a house party at my house, and a girl friend of mine, a girl space friend, invited her, and I'd never met her before. And she's going out, she's talking to everybody. I think she decided she was going to sleep with somebody before she came to the party. She just didn't know who yet. And At some point, she spilled wine on the carpet, and she was like mortified that she just spilled wine on the carpet of this person she didn't know. And I was just being chill and non-reactive. I was just like, yeah, no big deal. And I got a towel and I cleaned it up, and I did not get mad or fuss or do anything about it. And she told me like that's what really turned her on, that I didn't freak out that someone had spilled wine on my carpet. Like the fact that I was like chill and didn't care and just took care of the issue, didn't make her feel bad, managed all her emotions, and said, yeah, enjoy the party. It's not a big deal. That's what hooked her for me at that moment. And it's like stuff like that. You can't engineer it, but you have to live it and have the inner game. And then you're going to find that there's just stuff that you do that is completely unconscious to you, but that's what's hooking the people around you.
And that came up in a debrief too. After you slept with her, you asked her, "When did you know you want to sleep with me?" And she mentioned the wine spill incident.
Yep. Yeah, I used to, when I was new to this and I was still like not 100% confident, I would debrief everyone I slept with. And because that was a thing they encouraged on the forums too. It's like, ask them. You'd be surprised after you have sex how candid they are. And you'll get insight into things that, you don't even realize you're doing. Some good, some bad, Ask them if you did anything they didn't like. You'd also be surprised at the feedback you get about blind spots that you don't even know you have. Because obviously it wasn't bad enough to mess up the pickup, but maybe it messed up things in the past.
Yeah, and if you don't ask, you'll never know, and you'll have a bunch of assumptions, and some of those might be right, and some of them won't be. I've got a mentorship student I'm working with right now. He's an online gamer like you, and we talked about doing debriefs after sex the last time we talked. And we're talking about she's got all the oxytocin there. She's in trust mode. You guys just had sex. Hopefully, give her some orgasms, and she's got even more oxytocin. And, especially if it's the first time in bed, she's like, I don't really see this going anywhere. So she doesn't have any reason to hide. So you can ask her these things and get all this intel. And he's looking for a girlfriend. So he's kind of looking for like, trying to assess background. And he's like, man, he's like, I was really surprised by the difference in, like the one girl has been on apps and she's like going on a ton of dates with all these different guys. And then he talked to another girl, and she just joined the app because her friends had been pushing her to, and she hadn't been on a date in like a year. She hadn't had sex with a guy since she broke up. She hadn't been I think she hadn't had sex in a year, and she hadn't been on a date at all in like 6 months. And then as soon
Okay.
as she went out with him and slept with him, then she deleted the app, and now she's seeing him. And like a third girl was somewhere in between, like she'd been going on a few dates. But he's like, man, the crazy the differences, and you wouldn't have known that if you didn't ask them. And then same thing
Yeah.
with like, when did you know that you wanted to go to bed with me? Did I do anything weird, anything that put you off? And girls will just tell you this stuff. Like, I wouldn't have even thought about that one. Oh, interesting.
Yeah. The feedback you can get after the fact is so valuable. And it's really eye-opening. And you to your point about I would, if you do want to do an online game, I would recommend paying for the apps because of the girl that you just mentioned who they'll date the first eligible guy that they meet on the apps. Like a number of girls I've dated for more than a few months have been like, oh, I installed the app and you were like the fifth person I talked to. And they don't enjoy the idea of being on the app. So they're gonna like get to the first person they speak to. And if you pay for it, it does like push you to the top of the queue. They're gonna see your profile. Like I had one girl tell me that she'd been on the like it was weird because I traveled in the middle of talking to her. So like we went on like 3 dates and hooked up, but she knew that I was going on a 3-month trip to live at the beach over the winter. And I told her that when I met her, I was like, we can hook up, but you need to know I'm leaving. She's like, okay, fine. So we went and we hooked up, and then I left for 3 months to live in another country. Then I came back, and she was like, "Oh, I've had so many adventures on this app. I had no idea the deluge of men who would talk to me, and she was telling me how like she got as the days and weeks went by, she got more and more and more selective. And she even made the comment that like she was a homebody and she didn't like bars. And I had bars as a thing I liked in my profile. And because we'd met on like the first day or two she was on the app, she liked me. And she said, after about 2 weeks, I would just use bars as a filter. I wouldn't have swiped right on you if you hadn't met me in the first couple of days I was on the app. You would have gotten denied because I don't like bars. And because she just had to get more and more selective because of how much choice she had. And it was a shock to her because it was her first time on the apps, exactly how many like guys liking her that she got.
Yeah, it's interesting seeing the different problems with guys, like the average guys that don't have good pictures. I assume you've got like professional pictures or good pictures.
I try to make my pictures tell a story. I don't get professional ones just because I'm in a smaller market. I don't want to blow my value out, but I do want to appear like the guy who's not from here, who's done a lot of things. So I have like a picture of myself on the pitch of a soccer stadium, like in the middle of it, because it's like, well, how'd you get there? That's a story I can go into. I have pictures of myself in other countries. Um, one thing that it was a feedback I've gotten consistently from all the women, and it wasn't obvious to me, is just pictures of me with a big smile on my face. Consistently, every woman will tell me the picture I like most about you is the one where you're like at a table and you have this big smile on your face. And I have two of those, and every single girl says that's their favorite picture of me. Just you smile. They don't think it's cool that you're skydiving. They don't think it's cool that you're at Niagara Falls. Everyone's seen all that stuff before. Okay, you went to travel. Like something about you with just a giant smile on your face sub communicates good things to them. And that I would have never thought that by myself. That and I even didn't think about it at first. Like one of my friends' wives, who I'm also friends with, we've been friends since high school, but she was like, let me see your phone. I'll pick your pictures for you that you can put on Tinder. And I was like, yeah, go for it. And she started swiping through all the pictures on my phone. She's like, this one. And I was like, that one? She's like, yes, this is the best picture on your phone. And I would have never even considered it. Never considered it. And I was just like, it's just me at a table. And she's like, yeah, but look how happy you are. You're like, that's what girls want. And I was like, okay. And then sure enough, she was right. Like it's been consistently my feedback is that's the picture. And another one that another girl I was with took where I just passed an exam for a professional certificate that I knew was going to be like really good for my career. And we were at a celebration dinner and she's taking all these pictures of me and I had this huge smile on my face. And she was like, that's the best picture of you.
Oh, that's neat. Well, there's the new method, guys. Find
Yeah,
a hot girl with good taste, ask her to go through all your photos and pick the best photos that should be on your dating app profile. Make sure she's not a girl that secretly wants you for herself so she doesn't sabotage it. And
right.
there's your profile.
Yeah. And even if you don't have that, just like I thought, I'm gonna have all these pictures that like have open hooks that they can ask about. Like, what were you doing here? Why were you there? Or like, I was on the beach and I'm like cropped out. There's a girl with her arm around me, but I cropped her face off. But anyone who has half a brain can tell it's a girl's arm around me. That type of thing. And it's like, that's your pickup brain going, well, those are the pictures you need to display your value and this, that, and the other. But then the girls are like, no, like you at a table with a blurry background and a giant smile on your face. And even the Tinder, like they have some kind of algorithm that tells you like what picture the women swiped right on, and that's the one that they say is the best.
Great minds think alike. I was doing the cropped off girl thing too. And actually, my one of my best early online pictures was a picture of me sitting at a table with a big grin on my face. and this girl leaning into me with her smiling face right next to me, but chopped off so you could only see part of her face, just enough that you could see that she's attractive, but enough that it looks like I'm trying to keep the picture just focused on me. And the girls will always be like, "So who's that girl with you in the picture? Is that your girlfriend?"
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, it hits those buttons. They won't tell you it's their favorite picture. Actually, I had one of my girls that I'm just friends with was like, "Oh, that would make me so jealous. Like, I would just want to know who she is." And I'm like, "Yeah." Like, yeah, like that's the feedback too. Is like it's working. They won't tell you it's their favorite picture, but it's working.
Oh yeah. So changing speeds from online game. I mentioned earlier I wanted to come back to this. So I get your perspective on marriage because you were a pickup guy, then you settled down, you got married, did it for 8 to 10 years, then split up. I assume you got divorced. I assume you don't have a wife waiting for you back in Brazil down there. And now you're single again. What's your perspective?
Um, I enjoyed it. We built a business together, and the reason we didn't have kids was just we were in the entrepreneur mode, and we were like, we don't have the bandwidth to run a startup and have a child and even the financial aspect, like we're reinvesting all of our money into this company. So how are we going to fit a child into this? So the plan for a while was to, just wait till we were in a better financial spot to start a family. And then I don't know how familiar anyone listening is with Brazilian politics, but it all went to hell in like 2015, 16, like the economy crashed and they impeached the president and uh, I don't know, everything just went to hell. And we were running a marketing company, and in Brazil, the attitudes towards marketing are very different than they are here. They don't understand branding at all. Maybe the top 20 like biggest businesses in the country do, but like the smaller guys don't. They think if they spend $30 today, there should be $40 of business in the door tomorrow, or it's a failure. So once a recession hit, everyone just stopped their marketing spend. That's the first thing they cut. They're like, well, we're just going to stop paying for this because we're getting less clients. And so our marketing business kind of crashed. And then the woman I was dating, she was a minority. And when Trump got elected, the plan was always to move to the US. And she fell down that rabbit hole of, oh, the US is racist now. I don't feel safe moving there. And I was like, plan's always been to move to the US. Ever since I met you, day one, the plan has been that you move to the US. If you're modifying the plan, like I don't plan to spend the rest of my life in Brazil. And so it was just an amicable breakup. Like our paths just diverged. Also she was a dentist, and the US has a policy where they don't respect uh, degrees, medical degrees from other countries. And so once she got her practice and stuff set up, she was like, well, why would I leave here to not be a dentist in another country? Like, because they also put a bunch of prestige on titles. So I don't know, our paths just diverged. It wasn't like we didn't like each other anymore on a personal level. We just sat down and had an adult conversation that I don't see myself here in 10 years and you don't see yourself leaving. So why are we wasting our time continuing this trip to nowhere, right? So, and actually we keep in touch to this day, to the chagrin of the other girls I date. They don't like the fact that I get on WhatsApp every now and then and chat with my ex-wife. Like they find it bothersome, but I tell them, deal with it. What am I gonna go cheat on her? I can't hop on a plane and fly 8 hours if I want to get laid. I could kind of see their point if they were like she lived across town, but it's like whatever, dude. I'm gonna keep talking to her because I like talking to her. She's a great person, and we have a lot in common to this day.
Yeah,
We
it's
just on the
funny,
same
isn't
path.
it? I've seen a similar thing because, ex-girlfriends, I've got an ex-wife too, and you know, I'll have girls that like, so I know you're doing mostly online game now, but like for me, I'll have girls, I pick them up like on the street or like coming out of a club or wherever. And so they know that I can pick girls up like anywhere.
Mhm.
That's how I got them. And still, when they talk to me, they're like, oh, you're not in touch with your ex anymore, are you? I'm like, that's what you're worried about? Like, I could just go out and like pick up a girl, right? Why would I? Well, I'm like, it's an ex-girlfriend. But
Right.
it's the male female difference, right? She's not worried. She's not like yeah, maybe she'll say like, I don't want you fucking other girls or whatever, but the deep part of her brain is not really worried about like if you fuck some random girl and then never see her again. She doesn't care about that. What she's worried about is that you're going to divide your resources among her and another woman, and then
Yeah.
you're
It's the
investing in
emotional.
this other girl. That's the
Yeah,
threat.
you have an emotional connection with this ex that she doesn't want you to have. Like, yeah, I've had plenty conversation with women. It's like, would you rather me cheat on you with a coworker or a prostitute? Every single prostitute. Like, obviously, you don't want me to cheat on you at all, but given the option, they'd all choose prostitute because they value the emotional connection more so than the act of like intercourse. And that's why they're so sketched out about you talking to your ex because, you already had something there in their mind. You could flip a switch and be like, I'm going to go back to it. I like her more than I like her more than the girl I'm with now. Whereas if you meet a rando off the street, who knows who she's going to be?
Yeah. And to be fair to them, that does legitimately happen. There are a lot of people that go back to their exes all the time.
Oh, yeah. Especially as you get more successful. Like, how many athletes and stuff end up with their high school sweethearts because they just can't trust anybody that met them after they became famous. Like the more success and stuff you get, the more the moochers and the leeches and the parasites come out of the woodwork and you start to get paranoid. It's like, is this person hanging out with me because they want something or are they genuinely like me? Because so many times the answer is they're just a yes man who sees value in being in my circle. They don't actually like me, but you can actually trust that your best friend from high school is your best friend because y'all were best friends then. They're not just kissing your ass now and you have nothing in common other than him being fake and pretending you do.
Yeah. And I was just thinking, like, that's part of why some of the most enjoyable dynamic, at least for me, like the better dynamic, are where you have this kind of a back and forth flirtation with a girl, where it's there's some testing in there and pushback, and maybe she gets a little bit angry at you at some point, and so you can kind of see that there's this tension there. She's not just trying to kiss up to you and bend over backwards, do whatever you want to try and get you.
Yeah, for sure. Like one of the girls I'm seeing now is just like super passive and she just won't object to anything. And it fucks with my head sometimes because I'm like, there's no fucking way that you just like everything that I suggest. That's impossible. Like you're just go and I tell her straight to her face, I'm like, you need to be more assertive because, I don't want to be in a situation where if we date each other for months, suddenly you're going to come out of the woodwork and say, I always do what you want to do. And it's like, I've been very clear that you have feedback in everything we do as long as we're together. If you don't speak up, that's 100% on you. And it actually, for the first couple of weeks, I was really like sketched out about it because I was like, I can't properly filter this person or see if we like the same stuff. She agrees with everything I say. Like it makes me feel like she's not being honest about who she is. And like how can I know if I like this person if they don't give me honest feedback about their preferences and the things they like and don't like and this, that, and the other. They just go along with everything. And, you know, red pill guys would be like, perfect girl, 100% submissive.
Exactly what I was thinking.
And I'm
Other
like,
guys listening are like, oh, why would you want to change that?
no, because I know for a fact that this is, I mean, not for a fact, obviously I could be wrong, but my experience with women tells me this is only going to last for so long. At some point, she's going to go mask off and be like, actually, I have all these preferences. I was just being nice for the first however many weeks or months we're together. And, it happens all the time, men and women. You hear stories about people completely changing the second the wedding's over. They're
Uh-huh.
like, well, I'd be nice to you while we're dating. Now we're not dating anymore.
From here on out, we're following new rules.
Yeah, and it's like, what the fuck? I thought dating was a, a selection process where we're honest and open with each other and decide if we're a good fit, not I'm gonna lie to you until you sign the paper and then completely change the rules after the fact. So yeah, it sketched me out that she was so complacent that I couldn't get a read on her. It's like, does she like me or not? Or does she just see value in my status and she wants to be part of that? Like, but it turns out she's just like that with everybody. Like, I couldn't even get her to write an email to a car dealership that messed her car up because she didn't want to cause tension.
Just very conflict avoidant.
Yeah. So she's like, well, watch whatever you want. It's like, okay, well, don't get mad if it's girls chase.
Huh. Yeah, some people just don't have preferences. They're just kind of floating along. Wherever life takes them, that's okay by them.
Yeah, and a lot of girls, actually, I'd say like a majority of girls will, to an extent, imprint themselves on whoever they're dating. Like you see this a lot, especially with younger girls in high school. Like a girl that never liked metal will date a guy who's really into metal, and suddenly she's this giant metalhead. That type of thing. Like there is that does happen. That's a thing. Like if a girl really likes you, she'll make an effort to get into whatever you're into. That's why like if your game's solid enough, you could get them playing D&D or whatever, Warhammer, whatever nerdy thing you're into, but you got to have a really solid game to get to that point. I remember Sin was really into comic books before Marvel was a thing. This was like early 2000s when Marvel was struggling, but the way he described the stories and the emotionality of it and this, that, and the other, he would get girls into comic books all the time. And I wasn't even a comic book fan. I was like, wait, you get girls to read like X-Men and stuff with you? And he's like, yeah, these stories are actually really good. And they would agree because his game was so solid and he could present it in a way that was got them hooked because he loved it. But I wouldn't recommend, especially at that time, like a normal guy at a boot camp that wasn't having good success to go to the club and tell girls about X-Men. Like you gotta choose your level.
Yeah. And that's so we were talking before the call about like you talk about this pickup stuff with like people in your social life or girls and that was one of the things that one of the reasons why I quit talking about it because I would talk about it with the girls and like I'd be talking about pickup whatever and suddenly they'd be like oh I'm really interested in pickup and if there was like a rocky part in the relationship they're like I'm gonna learn this I'm gonna learn how to pick up guys or like can you give me any tips I'd be like oh man do I want to be introducing this to my relationships? Maybe not.
Yeah, the I haven't had many relationships where the girl found out, but the few, like, yeah, like you said, anytime you had an argument or anything, it's like it was, or they'll start going back over everything you've ever done. But was that a technique? Are you just manipulating me? Do you really think that? And all these things, and it's just not worth it to bring up. Like, I don't know. I mean, I don't think I would break up with whoever went through my computer, but I still make an effort to like not leave any type of pickup thing open on my browser that they could like stumble across, like it's just not worth it. And even like on YouTube, I don't want because I lay in bed and watch YouTube all the time. I don't want to go like today before this call, there was a post on the forum about Tyler or Owen, whatever he goes by now. And I went on YouTube and started watching a few videos, and then I was like, well, shit, do I want this to start populating my feed? Because when girls come to my house and I go on the same YouTube premium account, it's going to have all this pickup content in it. And I was like, well, I don't want that. I should probably go on an incognito mode because it's like, because that algorithm, especially with like pickup red pill type stuff, not that those are the same, but YouTube thinks it's the same. You watch one or two of those things, and it's everywhere. It's just everywhere. And it's it's weird that YouTube pushes it so hard. I think it's because the way the algorithm works, it leans toward playtime, and guys that do get sucked in watch like everything. So that's why it does it that way. But if you're wanting to keep that part of your life separate, then you definitely need to like watch it in incognito mode or make a separate YouTube account or something.
Yeah. What I started doing years ago, I always heard it was like good to have different admin accounts from whatever account you're working in. Usually it's like good computer security.
Yeah.
So I set that up on one of my computers, but then I was like have girls over and have all this stuff on my computer. I'm like, I don't want to see that. I want to see that. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna have a work account on my computer and a personal account on my computer. And my personal account will be nice and clean and if she sees anything on there, then no big deal. And my work account there's always stays locked when there's a woman in the room. And she's like, "Oh, can I see your work account?" I'm like, "No, I got stuff in there. I don't want to get messed up." So no.
Yeah, and I can get away with a lot of that stuff because I work in healthcare. So I'm like, it has to be locked. It's HIPAA. You can't see it, and they don't question it. But yeah, like a lot of the stuff I keep and the same thing with work. Like I do a whole bunch of Zoom presentations and things, and I don't want to have like a porn site autofill if I try to share my screen and go to a website or whatever. So you 101% want to keep those like separate accounts on your browser, separate accounts on your socials, all that stuff. Like they call it operation security. And it'll save you because, if you have a kinky girlfriend and you guys want to watch videos together, you don't want that showing up in your results when you're doing a business presentation, for example.
And it's kind of funny because a lot of people, the people on the call, maybe some of them are watching that stuff too, but they're still going to chuckle anyway. Oh, it's got that popping up in his results. And then you got the one prude on the call. It's like, oh my word. What's that he's been searching for?
Yeah, I think it's streamers that actually have the bigger problem with that. Like, because those guys, they'll go crazy, like, oh, he's watching this.
Hmm.
Um, I work with some holy rollers living in Alabama. Like, I honestly don't know what their opinion would be if they saw something like that pop up. But, it's just good operational security not to cross those streams. And you don't want your girls seeing your pickup stuff. You don't want your work seeing pickup stuff. Like, I don't honestly, that's a good question. What would you rather have your work see a pickup site or a porn site pop up in your search results?
Oh, yeah. That's a difficult question. Leave your replies in the comments below.
Yeah. Like
Porn
what?
site or pickup site, guys? Which one?
I guess it depends what the video is too.
Yeah. I mean, pickup, I think pickup is like easier to spin off as like a normal thing. Like, oh, I was just looking for like tips on like, I'm just getting back into dating or whatever. And I searched on Google. That's one of the things that came up. People are like, oh, if you're explaining it, of course, if no one brings it up, then people are just like, oh, he's looking to pick up stuff. But yeah, I think the normal assumption is like guys kind of check that out, but don't really get that into it.
Yeah.
Most people aren't going to assume like he must be a dedicated pickup guy who's been doing this for 20 years.
Right. Um, yeah, because when I left the US, it was right at the height of like Mystery had his TV show, and it was on VH1, and like their idea of what a pickup artist is was like in the zeitgeist, and everyone who wasn't like in the community was kind of clowning on it. Like if I went to a bar in a not non-major city, but I was dressed really, I wasn't even what you would consider peacocking. I was just dressed really nice in brands that they didn't recognize. And people would be like, oh, this guy must be a pickup artist. Look how he's dressed, because it was so incongruent with the situation you were in. Like, why would a guy be in a bar in Topeka or whatever, dressed like he was going to a New York nightclub? Uh, and in your head, you're like, I'm dressing really well. I'm going to blow all these guys out because, you know, all the girls are going to think I'm like better than them. But the reality of the situation is they don't think you're part of their tribe. They're like, well, what's this guy doing here? And yeah, you can have success with that. There are going to be girls that are going to want to know, like, what's your story? Why are you here? Whatever. But especially at that time, I remember people just made the assumption, oh, you must be a pickup artist. Why are you dressed like that? Um, and Mystery's TV show is the main culprit of that. And the other thing that I've learned, anyone that lives in like a smaller city, is just everything's so clicky. And in your head, you could be like, I went to LA and hired a fashion consultant and bought this clothes and it cost me $2,000 and look how nice I'm dressed. But all you're really doing is saying, I don't fit in here. Everyone here is wearing like jeans and a plaid t-shirt or whatever, or flannel shirt or whatever, like whatever the fuck they wear wherever you're from, and you're not that. So like if it's a really cliquey environment, the girls are gonna see value in who's like head of the clique, not who's like the coolest quote unquote guy, coolest guy in the room because you're dressed so nice. Like maybe a few are, but not the most hot girl in the room, because the most hot girl in the room is going to be a social climber and she's going to want to be talking to whoever the coolest guy is in the city. She's going to have like her idea of what she sees as status, which is like the guy in that city that was born there and knows everybody and this, that, and the other. And it's so much harder to break into social game like that in smaller cities than it is to big cities. Big cities, everyone's a transplant. Everyone has like a limited social circle. It's maybe your job and a few people you've met here and there. And you go out, and the point of going out is to like meet people and network and do all this stuff. Like when I moved to smaller cities, it you would think game would be easier, but it's harder because everyone's so focused on the clique in their city and social climbing within the city that doesn't matter how well you present yourself unless you also insert yourself into the local scene and are successful in networking with the guys and setting yourself up as a person in that city that needs to be known. The girls don't really care about you uh, unless you get the homebodies off online dating or whatever.
That's very interesting. And we used to have a guy on the forum, and we banned him for like too much trolling and everything. But he was in Atlanta, and he was constantly complaining about how cliquish it was there. And he finally moved to New York City to escape from it. But his thing was like Atlanta, like she's like, you have no idea how like people are just in these tiny groups, and they don't want to associate with anyone who's not in their groups. And then I'm hearing the same thing from you, and you're also down in that same area. So now I'm curious if it's
That's,
more regional.
I mean, and that's interesting too, because I would consider Atlanta the big city. I mean, obviously it's not New York City, but compared to where I am, Atlanta's like 6 million-ish, and I'm where I'm at is 1 million. So like, yeah, like I'll go out and you can see kind of like I remember when I lived in the bigger cities, especially when I was younger, I liked more alternative music. But if you went to the alt clubs, they had their own clique. Um, like it wasn't just enough to like go to Hot Topic and buy you an alt outfit and look really cool. Like that, they were a scene, and like there was a local band and a local bar owner, and like there was a whole hierarchy of who's like king of the alt people. And if you weren't in that hierarchy, the girls didn't give a shit. Like how physically, like maybe if you were like super physically attractive, you could get one night stands, but those scenes and those cliques, man, it's hard. They want to social climb. And if you're not good at that, that's a completely different skill. I think cold approach pickup was really like fine-tuned online for like major cities where you're going to go out and you're going to meet people and you're never going to see that person again in your life. And you could go out in New York, LA, like Sao Paulo, where Korea and I lived, Tokyo, like everyone knows if you go to a random place in that city, you're never going to see a single person that you met there ever again. And so you got to learn cold approach and you meet someone nice and you stay in contact. Small market game is a completely different story. There's like three or four legit places in the whole city and everybody sees each other constantly and you have to find a way to insert yourself into that social circle and be accepted before you even start to have value in their eyes. Like there's a window when you first arrive of being the new guy that gives you some grace. But if you've been going somewhere for more than a month or two and you haven't made any inroads into the social circle, they're going to notice that and put you at the bottom of the pyramid and you're just not attractive. And you might as well move somewhere else or make a big move to like do something. And, even with these small markets, a lot of it's politics too. So like, if you don't have a family that's invested in, oh, I own the corner and I own this building and that, and like it's even hard to like get into it because there's this intertwine of politics and locals and this, that, and the other, where even if you have the best game in the world, maybe you're a drinking buddy. You're still not going to be the big fish because the big fish is the guy whose dad is the mayor or the sheriff or whatever the fuck. And, you can be very charismatic, but you're only going to get so far in those situations in terms of value.
That's very fascinating. And I assume you haven't bothered with that too much since you've just been focused on online. You're like, I don't care about that at this point.
I
Since
mean,
you've returned.
I've been doing online just to get like a solid flow, but obviously I work here and I have contacts and um the biggest issue, even for me, like even though I work in the, so I live in a suburb, but the company I'm a director at is downtown, and the way the city's set up is like the suburb is its own little enclave versus the rest of the city. So like there are three or four bars less than 5 minutes from my house with a completely different dynamic than if I went to like one of the established quote unquote nice places downtown. The suburb that I live in, because my family is from here, uh, I have almost no inroads in because all of my professional contacts are with the hospitals based downtown, not anything like within this city. Like I don't own the bar or the local law firm, or no one in my family is the sheriff or the mayor or anything like that. So in my own like little area where I live, it's like, you can pick up the people that are on the periphery, but you're not going to pick up the hottest girl in town because unless you're just like Brad Pitt or a millionaire, she's gonna go for the social climb play. She's not gonna go for just the guy she met. Um, I'm not saying there's no success. Obviously, you can have success, and I've met people when I went out here, but I don't think of the limited fish in this pond. that realistically you're going to get like the biggest one. I think your better play is to go downtown to a bar where you're going to meet people that are also there to meet people. And, a lot of the people I've met have been transplants. And it's like, oh, yeah, I'm from St. Louis. I'm here to get my PhD. Um, One girl works from home, so she works in healthcare too. So we had a lot of common there. And she was just, you know, wanting to meet people online. Uh, the girl from 15 years ago, we were talking about the drink. I think we went to the same high school, but we also had the same like social circle. So that's like the bar that I went to back in that day. That I was like 21 at that time. Like I went there knowing that it was going to be the type of people that I probably knew. I was kind of playing that social game back in the day because I was like, well, if I go to this bar, I'm gonna know people. I'm gonna have like a status in this hierarchy that's gonna help me versus if I went to, say, the college bar or the dance club or whatever. Like I chose it strategically.
Yeah, and that's interesting. And where you're talking about how the transplant issues with the city, that's something I've discussed with a few other guys. If you notice, even in big cities, a lot of the girls that you're picking up tend to be transplants, and the natives, you're less likely to encounter them. They're more likely to be in relationships. They're more likely to have cliques within the city that they're a part of. And I almost feel like that's part of what makes it easier in cities in general is you've got so many new people coming in. You don't have so many new people coming into the suburbs. There's much less new talent coming in. Whereas,
Yeah. The transplants are they're actively seeking connection,
Mhm.
whereas the locals, they're playing the value game, they're playing the local game.
Yeah, they got their circles established. They've got their, here are the five potential people I might want to date that they're already thinking about.
Yeah, because you know, even it's kind of like the old school, like 1700s thinking. It's like, yeah, Chase is more attractive than Bubba, but Bubba's dad's the mayor and he has 50 acres and blah, blah, blah. And it's not just who's more fun to hang out with at the bar and go on dates with. It's also like, how am I going to position myself in this closed circle of people in this small city? Or even if it's a bigger city like Atlanta, I'm sure the guy you're talking about experience clicks 100%, but also there's plenty of places in Atlanta that are transplant bars. He just wasn't going to the right places. But if you go to these smaller cities, you're going to have success with the girls who didn't have success doing the social climb thing. You're gonna meet the girls that are transplants or weren't popular, but stuck around. Those are the girls you're gonna have success with in smaller cities. Where actually big cities, that's the reason I like big cities so much, is because the really successful women tend to be transplants because just that's how the jobs shake out. If you go to school and become, I don't know, a dermatologist or a dentist or whatever, you're going to go to the city that hires you 9 times out of 10. You're not going to luck out and get a job next to your parents' house that where you went to high school. So a lot of the professionals that I'm attracted to tend to be transplants. And I've had success even in a smaller market. Like I live in this suburb that we're talking about that's extremely clicky. I don't go to my local venues. I'll use them as date locations. Uh, if somebody that I met wants to come here, but I will not go to them for pickup because if there is somebody my age, which a lot of time it's just like locals who are 50 or 60 and mostly guys, and if there is a girl there, it's someone's wife, and they just want to get drunk and watch football or whatever. Like, none of that's appealing to me. And it's not target rich. And even on the nights where it is target rich, you know, they're in cliques, and yeah, you can do set theory and get to know everybody and this, that, and the other. But even when you meet the single girls, they have their eye on the guy across the room. It's way harder to flip them than it is to just go to a club that has a bunch of transplants and meet people that want to meet people, right? Like, don't make it harder than it needs to be. Like, yes, you could be the best pickup artist in the world and go 5 for 5 and say, I'm going to go into the lion's den of this small town and get the honest girl, but just, be a statistician and play the numbers. Why would you go for the hardest possible thing when there's a bar 20 minutes away full of transplants that are probably better educated and have better jobs and traveled the world and have everything else on paper better than those local girls anyway? Just go game them.
That sounds like the way better deal.
Yeah. So like I'm a big proponent, even though I'm not practicing what I preach at the moment. Like, if you can move yourself to a big city, you'll you'll like it. Other than the traffic and the fact that the room is smaller, you'll like everything else.
So what's ahead for Levo? What are your plans? Are you gonna stick where you are, keep doing online game? Or are you gonna move to a big city? You settle down again at some point? Where do you see the future taking you?
So the reason I'm in the city now, this more personal than game, is that I was offered a really high position at a company, higher than I would have gotten anywhere else. And so my long-term strategy has been, stay here long enough so it doesn't look like I'm job hopping on my resume, and then job hop to a similar position, but at a much better company in a big city. So I'm about there. I've been at this company a while. There have been a few things still that I want to learn. And to be completely honest, the reason I stay where I'm at now is because it's so the job is just easy and flexible. Um, it feels more like I'm in college where I have projects that are due every 2 or 3 weeks than it does an 8 to 5 job. I don't have set meetings, I don't have set hours. So I love my job because it lets me basically do whatever I want, like go on cruises and go to another country over the winter because it's cold here and I want to go live on the beach for 3 months instead of being cold. And uh, I can stay up till 2 a.m. talking pickup with a really cool guy and not have to worry about being up in the morning because it doesn't matter. Like, the job I have is a dream job, other than I'm not living in a major city. So, which I could do, but it's also financial. Like, I'm in a really good spot where I'm at, and I'm not having issues with game. Like, because I'm not having issues with the game, I would recommend, if you're having issues, move to a big city. You're not gonna get all your sets in that you need to get good in a small city. There's just not enough targets. There's not a nightclub where there's going to be this constant stream of new people. You're not going to be able to do 10, 20 sets a night. You're not going to get all these data points. So don't copy what I'm doing right now until you're happy with where your game's at. I can live where I'm at and have success and be happy. But if your goal is to learn pickup, especially if you need a bunch of those data points and a lot of those sets to get good, like I did when I was new, you got to move to a big city. You have to. It's not really debatable in my mind. It's going to be really tough. But next for me, I'm not sure, honestly. I'm happy where I'm at, but I'm also looking to the future. I have a few startup ideas that are completely unrelated to pickup, that because I have so much free time in this job, I'm thinking of just moonlighting and seeing if they take off. Um, I'm happy with where I'm at girl wise. I am 40. I do find the idea of having a kid attractive, but I don't find the idea of just sleeping with someone who's willing and dealing with all this messiness down the road, because if we don't end up getting along. So like, I am dating to possibly have a child and a long-term relationship, but I'm just as content to say no one was up to my standards. I'm just going to be a player for the rest of my life. I feel like I need to make a decision pretty soon before I'm an old man dad, but that's where I'm at. Like, I'm looking for somebody who's a good long-term prospect, but I'm also not married to the idea. And if it lasts more than another year or two, I'm just going to be a guy that is a player in his 40s, and that's going to be my lifestyle.
Sounds like a reasonable plan. And excellent advice for the young guys or older guys that are just getting into the game on getting somewhere where you can get the number of reps in so that you can get that experience up, get those skills developed. Levo, it's been a pleasure talking with you, man.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Guys who want more from Levo, you can find him on the Skilled Seducer forum at skilledseducer.com.